All right, welcome back to the IMNerd podcast, guys. I'm your host, Freyway. I'm here with my co-host, Kenny.
Hello.
And today we have a special guest. We have an optional boss from our Patreon. We have Steve Rogers. You heard it right. That is his actual name, not like Captain America. But like Captain America. So Steve, why don't you give a little introduction on yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I'm a big fan, first of all. Pleasure to be here. I love you guys' podcast.
Thank you.
It's like the number one thing podcast-wise I look forward to is checking your guys' stuff.
That's awesome.
35 years old. Been playing Yu-Gi-Oh! since the anime that came out on Channel 5 or whatever, for the United States. I played off and on. I took a little break around the time when Fraser was big into ARG because I got married and had kids. But I still have the game, my cards. And pretty much been collecting to the point where like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon cards have gotten me to the point where I'm like, I like to collect things and I like to, for investment reasons, flipping and reselling. But
very smart.
Yeah. So
where you from? You said Channel 5 for where the anime came on. And I know here where we live in Philadelphia, it's a different channel. We have 17. WB.
No, Southern California.
Okay, so you're from Cali, like born and raised?
Born in Long Beach, and as time goes on, things get more expensive, moving more east and moving toward Orange County high school, and that's where I got into Yu-Gi-Oh! Because in Orange County, a lot of big heads from Southern California there. I've went to locals and stuff with and like Frank and Sons back in the day with people like Robert Boyajian. I'm pretty sure a lot of people know who he is. He's a pretty good player, and just his group of people. I used to like go there and like pick up cards I needed, and sometimes I'd hang around and kind of pay attention because obviously they'd be play testing, labbing, and things they're talking about would be really very relevant. So it wasn't. I would say I'm not like it wasn't top tier of a player. I played for fun, as obviously as everyone does, but I did top in LA Regional. I had like 1,100 people one time at 27th. That was pretty cool. That was
1,100 is a lot of fucking people.
That's a YCS
Holy
size.
shit.
Jesus.
And I lost the first round. It was funny. Everyone won the first round. I lost the first round. I'm just like, I don't care. I'm just going to keep playing the best I can. And I'm the only one who ended up topping. And it was the regional right after the Dark World came out, and everyone was playing Dark World for a minute.
So 2011?
Yeah. And actually, it was funny. I would first round. I go first. I roll attributed so many Gravekeepers, and I just felt like, man, that's the hardest thing in the world to just plus off the L that roll tribute. But I still would win. Beat them. So
So real quick, so you're from Long Beach, and Long Beach is actually the home of the largest ever YCS in history. Over 4,400 players, I believe, was the amount. I was there as well in 2012. But yeah, Long Beach is at one point the Guinness Book of World Record for biggest trading card game tournament, period. And I Magic may have taken it over since then, but I know back in 2012 it definitely broke the Guinness Book of World Records, so we were all technically a part of breaking that record. And I guess Long Beach, you grew up in that area, like that's where you're from. Did it have a really big Yu-Gi-Oh scene when you were coming up?
Yeah, but I mean, to be honest, I'd go to school and Yu-Gi-Oh would be like thick in school. I mean, there was jocks playing Yu-Gi-Oh. I remember there was like the metalhead punker kids playing Yu-Gi-Oh. I remember this one guy, his football player, he had a first edition Pharaoh Servant Jinzo. And he acted like he knew what he had, and I knew what he had too. But it's like, dude, you don't play like that. Stop playing. And so it was fun through school having people who had cards readily available, whether they played or not, and then having good people around me. I got to give props to my buddy Twan. Twan taught me how to play back in the day, and taught me some really good tricks where like I totally felt I had an upper edge on a lot of players back in the day just because I had a lot of good coaches, my friends who were really good players. And a lot of them were actually vendors at Frank and Sons. I don't know if you guys listening all know about Frank and Sons. It's really big.
I do know about Frank and Sons. That was definitely one of the premier locals. It was basically, correct me if I'm wrong, but Frank and Sons is like a very big warehouse style place where there are a ton of vendors, a ton of booths, and they all are selling like different things. Is that how it pretty much was?
Yeah, it's cool because like there's a portion of it where it's just like action figures and toys, and there's a portion where it's video games, and a portion where it's like collectible stuff and coins, and then it gets to Yu-Gi-Oh and the trading card part, and that's like half of it. And it's just like a mecca, dude. It's so awesome. Like I wish it's still open. They moved, so it's not the original location, but I recommend everybody, if you have a chance in Southern California, check out Frank and Sons. That is like the spot in Southern California for you.
I've been there once, I think in 2012 actually. I think for Long Beach, me, Robert Boyajian, and Alistair Constantine, we all took a trip down to Frankensons, and I went there and I saw there was a booth that had a ton of giant cards, and just like there were so many different vendors, so many different people selling, you know, at that time, whatever the hot thing was. So Maxi, Rescue Rabbit, Tour Guide, etc., that type of stuff. But yeah, and I know in general, California is known for having some of the biggest competition as far as top players in Yu-Gi-Oh's history. Like there are a lot of Iman, Adam Korn, and that's just like the two off the top of my head, but there are so many people from California that are like Robert Wayajin, you named him. There's a lot of people from California who are just really, really, really good at Yu-Gi-Oh! And that place I feel like always has bred like some of the best. I think Angel Flores too.
He's from Mexico, Baja, Mexico, but yeah, he's in California too. He's a really good player. I remember he topped one of ICS, I think, back in the day.
He's won 3 of them.
He's really good player. I remember
really good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I always think of California as a very strong part of the West Coast, and the reason why pretty much the West Coast was very dominant for a while in Yu-Gi-Oh! In general, just because, you know, Cali has so much talent there, and a lot of events were held in like Anaheim, San Jose, or Costa Mesa, whatever. But yeah, so did you travel and go to YCSs or Shonen Jump Championships back in the day?
I'd go to Vegas. I travel to California and like local stuff, like as far as next state over, not far. But I have potential too. I had, you know, that time I got my invite when I topped that regional. I actually left and I didn't even go up to the front or do anything after. I saw that I topped, and everyone was so tired because it was like midnight and I was the driver. I'm like, let's just go. You know, you guys are so bummed out and tired, and you know, it's not that big of a deal. I'm not going to go to Worlds or Nationals or anything. So, but yeah, like I play hard, like I play to win, but I also don't take it so seriously, like to ruin my experience.
So now you play Edison like the rest of us, right?
I play Edison and current format. I go to locals and I play test, and I do actually pretty well. It's just hit or miss sometimes with the deck. It's actually a pretty custom deck, but I do play Edison a lot. And man, props to your deck, dude. That frog deck you made, it is so clean.
Thank you. A lot of people have been saying that.
Well, like for example, last night I was after dinner. I had a couple beers and I just had my laptop on the couch and I was watching a movie, and I was like, my kid was watching Finding Nemo and I was paying attention to that and playing. And I swear, littlest things they would do, I would notice the misplays. Like, oh, you're gonna pay for that. Oh, you're gonna pay for that. And I would just draw. And I'm like, oh man, that's a good draw right there. Like, you got the deck surgically cut down to where everything you draw is like really good, dude. You can tell that deck is solid. That's a good deck.
Thank you. I've been working on it all year, honestly. But yeah, I'm a big fan of the frog deck. As you can see, it's brought me a lot of success this year. And I'm glad that other people are experiencing the same thing and they're liking the way it feels and they're tweaking it and changing it to their likeness or whatever. But that's what it's all about. Like, I like inspiring people. That's pretty much always been a part of my journeys ever since, you know, like even before ARG and post ARG days, writing articles and stuff like that, doing deck profiles. And now I'm a full-time content creator, which is an interesting space to be in for sure. But it's nice hearing people like you who love the podcast. They like supporting it and look forward to it every week. So that's awesome to hear. I really appreciate that.
Every week, dude. Looking forward to hearing you and Kenny. And honestly, dude, since I began playing with my buddies back in the day, going to tournaments in the group, shout out to the Squirtle Squad.
I love that.
Squirtle.
Yes, the Squirtle Squad.
He'd always bring you up, man. Every time we play, he'd bring up, you know, that's not a good move, man. That Frazier wouldn't approve that move. What would Frazier do? It's like, oh man, like
not WWFD.
WWFD, dog. You heard it.
What would Frazier do?
Because we want to play test to where we're learning how to be better. So we're not going to like penalize each other for making the wrong move when we can actually take it back and learn from it. Like you mentioned before, we would do that. But like also, we would also fuck with each other too and be like, hey, you know, that's not an Adam Korn move right there. That's not a Frazier Smith move right there. So yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I have to ask you, because we have Skull Servant. For people who are watching this on Patreon, if you're looking at the video version of this podcast, Skull Servant is, from what I understand, your favorite card. And if it's not your favorite card, I know it's a card that you love a lot, because you sent me a lot of photos of it being signed by people who are currently incarcerated or on death row. And so I have to ask, one, why are you so drawn to Skull Servant? And then two, we could talk about, you know, who you've had sign your copies of Skull Servant. So let's get into that.
Before that, I just want to say, old Yu-Gi-Oh! Flavor text. I'm looking at the flavor text for this card. It says, a skeletal ghost that isn't strong but can mean trouble in large numbers. Who? Yes. How? No, it can't. It can't. If you have 5 of them on the field, like that, it doesn't mean trouble. They have 300 attack. Like, they don't get stronger.
The king of Skull Servants got something to say.
Like, that deck hasn't been allowed yet. Someone with Smarts needs to go at it and make something out of it because skull servants could be a thing. But no, with the skull servants though, I when I was younger, I've got the tip from a couple other people who've done it to pen pal people in death row, like serial killers, because their autographs can be resold for monetary value, like people like Richard Ramirez and stuff in high school. So when nowadays I communicate with the BTK and I send him letters, and he sends me letters and artwork and stuff. And
what's the BTK?
That's short for. By the way, I don't mean to I'm not talking about him like talking him up like he's a great person because he's a serial killer or anything. These guys are all pieces of shit for what they've done. But like I said, monetary
Trigger
value.
warning, I guess, for anyone who is we are about to talk about some people who are incarcerated for some heinous crimes.
So the BTK is bind, torture, kill. His name is Dennis Rader, and he was known for killing people he was on the run for like 30 years, 35 years or so. And he's one of the first serial killers. The FBI learned a lot of stuff to help track him down and stuff. And long story short, I sent these cards to him, and he signed them, and I managed to get him back. Not all of them. I didn't get back all the cards.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So what he did was he would make masks. He'd take like paper mache masks or plastic like Halloween masks and paint them up and put them on his victims and like display them and do photo shoots and stuff afterward, like whatever he likes to do with them.
Yeah.
And I sent him like Mask of Restrict, Mask of Accursed, and, multiples of them, because I feel like if he autographs that, I mean, even someone who's not into Yu-Gi-Oh, that could be something I can sell.
Mask of Brutality, yeah, that's interesting.
He kept
that is interesting.
He kept the masks.
He kept the masks. He didn't send those back.
That's so interesting. So you've basically, in a way, communicated with a serial killer before.
Yeah, actually, matter of fact, I've communicated with so many like big name serial killers that I've had the FBI bug me so much and bug my wife. And
oh wow,
what?
Real quick. So have you ever seen the show or heard of the show Mindhunters on Netflix?
Yeah. Actually, the Mindhunter, in between each serial killer, they kind of show this guy, and that's the BTK. Oh,
that's the BTK that they're okay.
That weird guy who kind of like is in between each scene and they don't explain him.
Right. So if you guys don't know, Mindhunter is a show on Netflix about the first time that the word serial killer was even being created. It's before that actually becomes a thing. The department, basically the FBI or whoever is responsible for investigating serial killers, that department is being formed in the show. So it takes place several years ago, decades ago, and they're tracking down people who have killed multiple times, and usually with some kind of special kink to their killing, right? Like, so some people, they might dismember a certain part of a person's body, or they might leave a puzzle piece or something carved into the victim, or just do something that say like, this is me, I want you guys to know that it's me. And it's also the psychology behind it. And they talk about how a lot of serial killers, it's not just the killing that gets them going, it's like, all this other stuff. So they try to explain it. They're trying to put a reason behind why they're doing it, other than just saying like, this is a sick person. It also goes into like, what makes somebody like this? What happened in their childhood? They try to explore that. Were they molested? Were they beaten? Were they bullied? Did something crazy traumatic happen? Did they get dropped on their head? Like anything that you could think of that might make somebody turn to a life like that. And then also they focus on the person wanting to be caught in a way. Like with serial killers, a lot of the time it's a game of cat and mouse, and how some of them low-key want to be found, but they're not going to just go to a police station and be like, I'm turning myself in. It's more so like, you have to come get me. So it's I found season 1 of Mindhunter to be very, very good. Season 2 was also good, but for some reason it didn't hold my attention as well as season 1, so I didn't fully watch it. But that season 2, I believe, focused on, there were little black boys being abducted and killed in down south, and this is something that really happened. This is all based on true events. So like everything in this show, essentially, like especially the serial killers, they're actually based on things that have really happened. So the show was phenomenal to me. And season 2 focused on like what was going on in the South, where little black boys were being captured and gone missing, and then they would be, they would find them and they would be murdered and stuff. And it's very good. Like the way the episodes are structured, they're an hour long, and the acting is amazing. Strangely enough, we just shit on the movie Matrix 4, and one of the things that we shit on about it was the guy that they replaced Agent Smith with is the main character of Mindhunter. So so the guy who plays Agent Smith, the replacement for him in Matrix 4, he's the main character of Mindhunter, and I actually love him in Mindhunter because he basically plays a genius. He plays someone who's really smart.
Mindhunter, they didn't do the last season.
Oh, they didn't do season 3, I guess it would be?
And what's crazy is I was talking to Dennis Rader, the BTK, the whole time, and he loves any kind of notoriety, any kind of like talking about him, he just absorbs it all up because that's all he has.
Yeah.
And he was eating up every little bit of it. The fact that he was like the middle scenes in between, putting everything together, he was loving it. And then it totally killed him that like they stopped. He's like, no, they stopped in my season.
So did he write to you like actually, or how do you?
Well, I wrote first, and he doesn't communicate to a lot of people. What I do is like with a lot of these people, like a lot of people on Mindhunter show, I actually have letters from most of the people on there. Actually, I would say like 80% of the people on there, I have letters or envelopes from them or artwork. So I collect. I guess from Pokemon it started. I blame Pokemon. All the collecting. It grew to the Yu-Gi-Oh, and then it grew to just while I'm at work or at school, being able to write letters to people. And I've written not only serial killers, like gang leaders and stuff. Like I've had a really Latin King member, leader, Augustine Zambrano. He's been my friend for a long time. So like the FBI has come knocking on my door. I used to get phone calls before, and it'd be like, "Hello, is this Steve Rogers?" And I'm like entertaining the phone call for a second because I'm at work and I got time.
That
and
name, I'm sorry, but that name is just so.
Hello, is this context, Captain America?
Right. In this context where Captain America and you share the exact same name, and then talking about the FBI also like knocking on your door and calling you and stuff about, your run-ins with serial killers and gang leaders. It's really just, the world is a funny place.
It's crazy because they came to me because at first, like I said, they called me and I just kept hanging up the phone. And I finally said, "Look, if you're the FBI, you know where I'm at, you know where I live. I'll see you tomorrow."
That's true.
Next day, I went to work and I clocked in and I got a phone call from my wife. She was hysterically screaming and crying, and something in my head told me that, like, man, yesterday you told that FBI agent come to my door, and I'm like, what if it's him? And then she goes, "There's FBI with vests and guns on my door."
Wow.
Oh shit.
Oh shit.
So I said, well, just have him call me because he knows my phone number. I'm like, "I love you. Goodbye." I hung up the phone. And I said, I didn't do anything wrong, so I'm not worried.
Right.
And then they called me and they're like, "Well, you're at AutoZone right now. So we're going to meet you in 30 minutes. Don't leave." Because that's where I was at. They're like, "Don't even leave. Just stay there." So I just sat there in the parking lot in my car waiting for them. And they come in barreling through and put me up against the wall and eventually took me to lunch and we had these visits where they would take me out to dates and talk to me about these people I'm talking to because these guys I was writing to, there's actually so many cold cases. Nowadays, the FBI, they still try to crack a lot of cold cases. And they have been ever since a lot of these websites for heritage and finding your blood heritage and stuff has come out. Government's using that actually.
Like Ancestry.com and stuff like that, you mean?
Yes, they're using it. It's not like some kind of like conspiracy. It's actually good because they're finding killers and people who have been hiding for a long time. But with that being said, a lot of people are being found and there's a lot of police looking into cold cases, and they actually had people who I were talking to and they wanted my letters.
I remember hearing a story about that where there was this guy who killed somebody some 20 years ago, right? And it never got solved. And the only piece of evidence they found at the crime scene was like a can of Coke. And they kept that, and it had like DNA evidence on it. But at the time, they didn't really have what they needed to, I think, like process it properly.
Right.
So years go on.
Exist.
Yeah. So years go by. They process the DNA. So now they have the DNA, but they don't have anything to compare it to, right? And then, so I don't know all the steps in the case, but essentially what happens is they compare this DNA to information they get from things like Ancestry.com, and they end up hitting a familial match. Obviously not the killer itself, but they hit like the cousin of the killer. And so they go and they talk to the guy's cousin. And then through that, they ended up catching this guy who committed a murder like 25 years ago off of nothing on but a Coke can, and literally catch this guy 20 plus years later. Like off of a Coke can and like a cousin match on Ancestry.com. It's nuts.
Those cigarette butts that they collect and those Coke cans they collect are sometimes better than actually collecting bodily fluids on the scene, because the FBI found out through their research over the years that your body fluid that you give out is actually a different blood type than your own blood type. So a lot of people are getting away with getting caught and saying, "Well, let me test your blood. We have body fluid from the scene." Well, your blood type is not the same as your body fluid blood type. And that got a lot of people out and a lot of people free back in the day. Kind of a little fact there.
Yeah, it's just getting harder and harder to commit heinous crimes, it seems, which is, not a bad thing. Yeah.
And that's why people who are into okay, because here's the thing. I'm sure everyone's got their own weird thing. Like, this guy's a sicko. That's fine. You can think whatever you want. But there's people who are really into collecting the serial killer stuff, and they they put it on their walls and stuff in their house, like it's decoration. I'm not that extreme, but there's people who are like that. So with that being said, there's a market for it. And I've just realized that there's a way for me to get monetary gain from it. And
So talk to us about that. So you like collecting things in general and like flipping them for profit essentially? Because I mean, we're in a Yu-Gi-Oh community and a lot of people enjoy obviously collectibles and then holding them for years and years and years and then selling them for a great amount of money, especially if you look at just the Edison market right now. I just recently looked at the price of Miracle Fusion Ultimate Rare because I thought about buying some and they are way too fucking expensive. But to
sold
the
out in a
point,
lot of
yeah, but to the point, so you have collected like memorabilia or signed things from some of these serial killers and gang leaders and stuff like that and been able to actually profit off of it?
Yeah, like just recently, the Unabomber Ted Kaczynski died, and I heard it on the radio at work. And I'm like, oh shit, he's dead now. So as soon as I got home, I went on Facebook Marketplace and put out Ted Kaczynski letters for sale. Message me. But I actually like to sell my stuff through a good family member friend of mine, Merle Allen. He's a punk rocker, and he's actually been he wrote like John Wayne Gacy back in the day and stuff, and so he's kind of known in the scene. So
that one I know because of Netflix.
Yeah. I have a lot of John Wayne Gacy stuff too. I have like envelopes, the big manila envelopes that have like paint inside, like, and they're written on like "Do Not Bend," or ones that he put his like the paintings that people are selling for like 20 grand and stuff, 15 grand. Those like I have like those envelopes and stuff, just a bunch of shit in my house that is worth a lot of money, and I've been slowly selling it off because it's worth it.
Would you say you're more into the serial killer stuff in that you are? It's like mainly just a hustle, and that way you're making money, or in doing it, have you become just more interested in the actual conversation and shit that you have with the serial killers and stuff like that? Like, yeah, how you compared, like some people really want the memorabilia because they're super into the serial killer, and you're mostly just selling it. But in doing that and in conversing with and being in that culture, would you say you've also like personally have become more interested in that stuff outside of just selling it?
I don't like watching too many. Like when I was a kid, I watched a lot of horror movies and stuff. Nowadays, I don't watch too much horror movies because real life is more scary. But I would say I like it less now. I keep it aside, and it's more for sale. That kind of stuff. It's pleasure. But it kind of leads into Yu-Gi-Oh a little bit too, because like one thing I love about Yu-Gi-Oh, like you can play Dueling Book all day and play smart and make the right moves, but there's something about presence in front of someone where you can make people make wrong moves. You can force people to make the wrong move with your like mental presence. I've been at regionals where I've opened brick ass shit hands and I'm just like bullshitting my way until I finally somehow they're not playing and I give myself an opening. And it's just body presence can do that. Like, I mean, I hate to sound like an asshole like this, but I've been at regionals where like I'm like, how did I draw this right now? This, and then like I get out my phone, I start acting like an asshole, like I'm not interested. Put my hat to the side, scumbag Steve here, here's scumbag Steve's not gonna top. Let me get this win real quick. Let me go extend and kill him. And then all of a sudden when they extend, here I am like a scorpion to grab him and I kill him. And it's like, damn it, you had that? It's like, yeah. Now all of a sudden I'm interested in the game. But that field presence that I put on the game made it to where my brick ass shit hand got me to where I won the match right there. So I mean, like, so with what I'm saying, the mental thing, like talking to people like that has made my psychological, like talking to people who like maybe don't want to reveal information or hiding something, because this is a lot of thing we have in Yu-Gi-Oh, and I work customer service. I like to take care of people, but I also get through the wall of bullshit. And I feel like talking to serial killers sometimes can give me this level of labbing to where I can deal with people who are not normal and not regular people you will talk to on a regular day.
I find what you said really interesting because there's a couple things to unpack there. So one, the physical aspect of Yu-Gi-Oh, which I do agree with you 100% on, because I know for a fact that when I play people, they're intimidated by me in person. It's something that I was shocked about when it happened obviously after I became a name. I'm using air quotes with that because I don't want to toot my own horn, but like I've played people who have literally come to the table, they sat down and they said, oh shit, this round I lost. Before the game even starts, before anything happens, this person has already taken a defeatist approach to the match. And sometimes I think to myself, is that reverse psychology? Is that them trying to psych me out and think that I'm going to get an easy win because they just already showed up defeated? Or does this person actually feel like, because of who I am, because of the notoriety, that I'm going to beat them because they feel like I'm better than them or whatever? And most of the time, the person is just being honest and they just feel like they're not going to win this round because of who I am. So there is that physical aspect, and I've seen people misplay or fuck up because of the intimidation, especially when a crowd starts to form around our match. Because I'm used to that, right? Like that every time I play Yu-Gi-Oh in person, people watch. I've been used to that since 2010, basically. And honestly, a little bit before that, but 2010, obviously, winning a YCS and then having your name plastered everywhere and then started writing for ARG and all that stuff, you become a household name. So every single time I would play Yu-Gi-Oh! At any event, there's a crowd that forms. And I'm used to that, but my opponents are like, they start looking around like, holy shit, there's a lot of people watching me. And so naturally that creates nerves for them. And then if you get called to a feature match, there's even more nerves with that because now you have the Konami representatives and like 4 judges standing there, and then a person is telling you, hey, before you make any move, I need to see everything you draw so that I can type it into this match. And stuff like that just adds layers of complication to the match. Whereas, again, me being a person who's had, I don't know, tens of feature, I don't even know how, I was going to say hundreds of feature matches, but I don't know how many it's actually been. But I've had a lot of feature matches. So I'm very used to sitting there, drawing a card, showing my hand to the person who's typing it, and then waiting to make my play, and then making my play and announcing my moves. Like, I'm used to the whole thing. But somebody who's not used to that, they get flustered when the Konami rep is like, hey, you need to announce all your moves. I told you at the beginning of the match, can you just make sure you announce everything you do? Just stuff like that takes them out of the game. So I've seen the physicality of Yu-Gi-Oh! And like how that naturally plays into me winning sometimes. The other thing is when it comes to like, I don't know, like mind games, strong mental and stuff like that, I can understand how someone who has talked to someone as maybe spooky as a serial killer, right? That could definitely strengthen your mental fortitude. And this is going back to me watching Mindhunter on Netflix. The main character in that show, he has multiple conversations with this. I don't know the guy's name. He's a very notorious serial killer, but he's a really big guy.
Huh? Ed Kemper, the giant. Ed Kemper.
Okay, that's his, yes. So he has conversations with him in the show, and those conversations are so fucking tense in the show. Like, I want people who are listening to this episode, watch Mindhunter season 1. You're gonna know exactly what I mean in like the first couple episodes when he has a conversation with this guy. First of all, this guy is chained to like his chair and the desk, so he can't really move too much, but he is fucking huge. Like, he looks like he's at least 7 foot, 300 plus pounds, maybe more than that. And then the main character is like not big at all. And when they're sitting across from each other, you can feel the tension and the fear in the main character, at least at first. And then it starts to kind of erode over time where he becomes more confident in talking to him. And he feels like he's kind of like friendly with him until, spoiler alert, but like towards the end of the show, he gets scared out of his fucking mind by the guy. But it's interesting because by him talking to the serial killer, I'm getting to the point, by him talking to the serial killer over and over again, it starts to become like a normal thing, as opposed to like, you're this antichrist figure that I'm afraid of like everyone else. It starts to become like, well, you're a person for one, right? Like at the end of the day, you're a human being. And yes, you've done some very heinous things, but I'm trying to get down to the mindset of what made you do it. You know, why did you leave your victims like this? Why did you always make it where we could kind of catch you a little bit and stuff like that? So it's really interesting. So what you said, like, you know, when you play the game or like when you talk to these people or have these interactions with these people, you feel like it kind of strengthens your mental. I get what you mean by that.
Yeah, the one thing about that, just to add on to Ed Kemper for a minute, that guy, he's a genius. He's got like a 200 IQ. He's a monster. He as bad as a person he is, because he's not a good person. He knows he's not a good person though too. He does as much as he can to try to redeem his own like soul or spirit, because like for years and years he does this program in prison where he like reads out children's books for kids who are blind and have to listen to like, you know, headphones to listen to a book being read. This monster of a serial killer who's, you know, done so much heinous stuff, he's actually like the voice for a lot of children's books. But it's like, it doesn't mean that she shouldn't be the voice.
That is wild.
It just I would have never guessed or known.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
His autograph, it's crazy. He doesn't talk to nobody. Like if you send him a letter, he didn't talk to nobody. His autograph, his envelope is worth like $1,000. Just his envelope that has his writing on it.
Wow. Is he still alive?
Yeah, he's still alive.
He has to be old as hell, because Mindhunter took place again before they even had the term serial killer. Like that show was them coining the term serial killer. So that's how far back it goes.
The thing is, he's really smart. Like I said, he's got like a 200 IQ. He's like a genius, like literally on paper. So, you know, that could be part of his longer life in a way, maybe.
Yeah, perhaps. I do wonder how old he is. I'm probably going to look it up after this, but that's very interesting. Okay, so you mentioned that you did, you know, go back to some of the Yu-Gi-Oh stuff. So you mentioned that you did watch the anime growing up on Channel 5 for you in California. Did you watch any other anime? Are you into any other anime?
Oh yeah. I mean, when I was a kid, like okay, Ronin Warriors. I don't know if anyone has ever heard Ronin.
Oh yeah. I'm that old.
I woke up like 3, 4 in the morning as a kid, like to go watch it on the TV because it'd be like Channel 13 where I'm at, you know. But Ronin Warriors, Sailor Moon. I remember when I was a kid, I was into Sailor Moon, and like my mom would be kind of like, "Why do you want to watch Sailor Moon?" It's like, "Well, I like it. I like the animation and stuff. It was fun."
Yeah.
And you know what's funny is I lived in Long Beach next to one of those like 99-cent video stores,
Mhm.
and this is a true story. For a couple months, we would go in there, me and my brothers, and we bring 99 cents, get a video or whatever, and we'd bring it home. My mom would be busy; she wouldn't be able to watch. My dad wasn't there, and somehow the clerks at the store thought it'd be cool or funny or smart to loan out these little kids, first and second graders, Sailor Moon hentai. So we were
Oh my God.
watching it once, just like octopus like wrestling. And it was crazy because like all of us kids were watching it. My sister was like 3 years old, my other brother was 4 years old, my brother was 5, I was like 6.5. And I'm like, not stimulated, but watching, like, what the heck am I watching? Like, Sailor Moon is like lit, dude.
Uh,
And like I remember she took the video away and like yelled at us and yelled at the video store, and we went back, and the guy, my brother, would rent those videos still all the time. And it's like, you're
I'm
like
in
a six,
tears.
and this guy's just like hooking you up.
He said Sailor Moon is lit.
This bitch was wrestling octopuses, he said.
Oh, that's too much. That's too much, Steve. You're hilarious. You're fucking hilarious. I'm dying. Oh man, yeah. No, I also grew up on Sailor Moon and Ronin Warriors. Definitely had a time with that. I remember watching that show all the time as a kid, knowing that it was much older than even me and my friends' generation. Like Ronin Warriors, you could tell by the animation that it came out long before like the 90s or whatever. But really, I still loved it. I still loved all the different armors, and then when they would combine, and the one guy would get the white armor.
Mm-hmm.
Really cool shit. Yeah, we would always say like who we were, and I would always be like one of the bad guys, like the guy who'd be like, was it break with fear? Like he would throw the chain down, and it would like all the chains would come up. So I definitely a good show. I love Toonami back in the day. Were you into Toonami, like on Cartoon Network?
Yeah, but I mean, for the most part, I would watch like whatever was on really at the time, because I never really like scheduled myself to sit there and watch anything, because I lived with 2 brothers and a sister, and
you got a lot of siblings.
Yeah, so I lived in like duplexes and stuff growing up, and like sharing bedrooms and stuff. So I would get out of the house as much as I could, just because I felt too like claustrophobic.
Yeah. Were you into like sports or anything? Was that your thing? Like you got out the house a lot?
Not really. No. I mean, I played baseball when I was a kid, football as a kid, and once I got to high school, I just gave up because I was so into Yu-Gi-Oh. That was my pastime. If I wasn't pitching, smoking pot, or I still did good in school. I had like a B average, but I if I would have tried, I would have been a way better student. I totally ditched to sell Yu-Gi-Oh and make money off Pokemon and stuff. And
I mean,
it's crazy you can make off that stuff, man. Even back in the day, as a kid, I remember being in baseball, and in the dugout, everyone's got their Pokemon out.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
that's true. So real quick about Pokemon, you obviously, most humans, not even just people who are into anime, have seen the Pokemon anime, watched the cartoon, whatever you want to call it. But you also collected Pokemon cards as a kid as well, I assume.
Yeah, I still got all my cards. So
did you play the game, like the actual video game?
Yeah, I played Blue and Red. I bought them both when they first came out. Even though they're the same game, I bought them both. I have a funny story about Pokemon Blue when it came out. I was so to get it. And I remember like my birthday was like a little after when it came out. I told my mom I have to have it. I have to have it. I'm gonna steal it if I don't have it. I have to have it. And I'm like 7 years old, 8 years old.
He said I'm gonna steal it if I don't.
So we go to Best Buy, and I get it, and I go home, and everyone's trying to have a party for me and hang out. And I'm just like, in my face, like playing my game like nonstop.
Literally me.
And at like 1:00 in the morning, I remember going to the bathroom that night, and for some reason, I don't know how, but that was the first time I was poisoned, to where I actually walked around with a Pokemon in my top 6. I was poisoned.
Mm-hmm.
And at 1:00 in the morning, for the first time that whole day, I don't know how, I'm seeing the screen do that. Did it?
Yeah.
Like it's poisoned?
The Flash.
And I'm like, and I dropped, I dropped my Game Boy in the toilet right before I noticed that. So I pulled my Game Boy.
Oh, no.
And I'm like washing like with my shirt, like, oh shit, oh no. And I'm like, I'm turning it off and on, I'm drying it, blowing into it. I get it on, and I'm like, okay, it's working. And then all of a sudden I see the screen do that shaking. And I was so devastated. I was like, no, I dropped it in the toilet. It's ruined. I went to Best Buy the next day and just demanded, I need a new one. This shit's broken. And it's funny because I went home and I played, and I got poisoned like soon after, and like in the bug forest. I'm like, oh shit, like it just does that.
At least so you thought, okay.
That's fucking, similar story. The first time I got poisoned, and I remember playing Pokemon Red and Blue. I remember playing the game, whatever, and then not realizing that screen shake thing was being poisoned. I thought it meant my battery was low. And so I was freaking the fuck out, because I thought my battery was low, was about to die, and I needed new batteries. And then, you're a kid, so you don't have ready access to that stuff. So I just like saved the game and turned it off. and I didn't get new batteries for like 2 days. I put new batteries in, and then I turned it on, still played, and the thing was still like beeping and shaking. I was like, what the fuck? I just put new batteries in. And then eventually I realized, it's because my Pokemon was poisoned. But it's awesome how, like, I don't know, like how esoteric a lot of that shit is back in the day and not explained, and how old video games are.
Yeah.
Because none of that shit is explained. You just have to like somehow figure out what these things mean
And
as
once
you're
you
playing.
see it once, you kind of know it for the rest of your life. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
it's
in
fucking
games,
cool.
Yeah, if that happens in any game from now on, you'll know I'm afflicted with something.
Yeah, and
Like,
games don't really do that anymore. Like games are so over tutorialized. I
they
think
really are.
Well, like, and also another thing that like this is true. I'm not bullshitting. All this is true. When I got through that Pokemon Blue, when I got the game back, I had rushed through the game because at that point I was partially through the game, and I'm like, oh, I'm starting over again. Big deal. I skipped getting Flash, so I got through the whole game. I got to the Elite Four. I got to that dark cave you get to with no Flash.
Rock Tunnel.
So the whole game, I'm figuring, man, Pokemon is savage because they got you going through dark tunnels where you can't see shit, and you got Zubats and shit biting at you. I was like moving up until I was like bump, 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 and I would stop and I'd tell myself, okay, no more up, and I make a map. I actually made myself map caves because I figured that's what they wanted you to do, and I actually made my ways through the caves, figuring out these hand-drawn maps because I could not figure out, like, man, they're just savage with this game.
Pokemon so my experience of that tunnel is that I play Pokemon Red and Blue so goddamn much that I knew the tunnels by heart at a point, because that was just the best game I ever played up until that point, right? Like, that was the best game I ever played in my life, was Pokemon Blue, because I was a blue boy.
Yeah,
and I knew all the caves so well that I could do them basically with my eyes closed. So it got to the point, instead of like, I realized that I was supposed to use Flash, right? And that was how I played it initially. I don't know how I knew. Well, I did have an older friend, so maybe that was it, but I can't remember with my mind right now, going all the way back that long. But however I knew initially in my first playthrough that you needed to use Flash to like illuminate the cave. But then it would get to a point where later in life, or not even that much later, like within the same year, but you know how when you're a kid, everything seems so much longer. Within the same year, when I would replay Blue, I would not bother to use Flash when I got into the cave. I would just go through it straight up in the darkness. Basically what you're saying, but not unintentionally. Like, I'm doing it because like I want to do it blind.
Yeah.
So until Zubat made
awesome.
me use
I remember
Magical.
I probably told the story before, but I don't remember if I did or not. But the very first time I played Pokemon Red, it wasn't my version of the game. I didn't get it when it first came out. I don't know how long afterwards, but the first time I saw the game was like at camp. I was at like a summer camp, and a kid had it, and I was playing his game, his red version.
Yeah.
And just running around, like having fun playing it. And my first time running around, I ended up finding Articuno like on his game.
Oh shit.
And he lost his fucking mind. Like, he was like, what? And like ripped the Game Boy from my hand, was freaking out, couldn't believe I like found Articuno, and then was like trying to catch it. And I knew it was something special, but I didn't really fully get what was happening at the time. And then I think like a week or two later, I ended up getting Red and Blue myself. I don't remember the exact timeline of the events, but it was pretty awesome. My first time ever playing the game, I found Articuno. Obviously, it wasn't my file, but yeah.
Well, I have a question. Since you guys would be like the best people to ask this question to, I've Googled it before and not got my answer that I'm looking for. But back in the original games, like when you can get missing number, you guys remember? Because like I hear people always talk about missing number, but there was also the other glitched Pokemon, which was the Snorlax. Do you guys remember the Snorlax that was there too?
Well, so yes and no. So basically, I actually was super into fucking Pokemon. I mean, I still am, but growing up, I was super into Pokemon and the games. I played all of the Pokemon games. I got all of them around when they released. At some point when I had my own money, I would always buy both versions, just because I wanted to, and all that stuff. So anyway, I would research and I would go back, play Red and Blue, etc. I've played Red and Blue a million times.
Yep.
The way Missing No and M, so there's Missing No, there's M, where it's just like a glitched letter, the letter M, and then like a glitched letter again. Missing No M, and then you can also find like like Kabutop's fossil and like the Aerodactyl fossil. You can find like the ghost and all and then you can also just find like random Pokemon.
Because I remember in my version, in my game, I would piss everybody off when we would link battle because I had the Snorlax that would always stay in red no matter what. He'd always stay in red and he would never lose life.
Yeah, so I don't know specifically what glitch that would have been, but I do know that depending on how you set up the missing no glitch, where you talk to the old man and go to Cinnabar Island, there's a couple ways to set it up, and depending on where you were beforehand, because it has to do with the way how the game stores data. You can basically make any Pokemon from anywhere in the game show up on the Cinnabar Island coast. So, like, if you're like in the Safari Zone, leave the Safari Zone, do the old man glitch, and go to Cinnabar Island. Pokemon that are exclusive to the Safari Zone will show up on the Cinnabar Island coast. Now, if you do that same thing, but you came from like Victory Road, you'll get Victory Road style Pokemon. So you can set it up to get like a level 137 Snorlax and shit like that.
That's what I would have happen unintentionally, though.
Yeah, like unintentionally, but you can, doing that same glitch, get like a level 137 Snorlax.
After one battle, they would level up and go right back to level 100, basically.
Yeah, and also, so yeah, just I guess I'll go into a bit more. I think it was the 6th item slot would get duplicated. I think it's like I think 126 times, like 126. I think was the number it would go to. You get 126 of whatever was in the 6th item slot, and it also would glitch your Hall of Fame. So if you beat the game and you beat the Elite Four and you had the like Hall of Fame, no matter what, even if you didn't catch Missing No, people would always say, as long as you don't catch Missing No, it won't glitch your game. One thing that always happens just by running in the Missing No is it glitches your Hall of Fame. There's nothing you can do about it. Your Hall of Fame gets all messed up. The Pokemon are the wrong or have the wrong names. They look glitchy. And something that's kind of interesting that happens is you can't even, if I remember correctly, you can't even undo it by reloading your previous save. Like if you run in the Missing No, don't save the game, and then reload your game, I think your Hall of Fame is still glitched, because if I remember correctly, when you run in the Missing No, the game takes longer to load than it does loading normal Pokemon battles. And what actually happens is there's like a quick save that happens in the background for some reason. Just has to do with like the glitch and loading Missing No. But like some kind of quick save happens, and when that quick save happens, your Hall of Fame is just basically permanently glitched unless you completely start a new game.
Wow, I never knew that part. Also, so Missing No, was that considered on purpose, or was that truly a glitch that was unintended?
It was a completely unintended glitch. It has to do with just various ways of how they stored data. Pokemon Red and Blue are like notorious. It's amazing. They're like held together with paper clips and string. Like Pokemon Red and Blue's code is it's inspiring, actually. Look, if you want to get into coding and making video games, like you can make Pokemon Red and Blue. Like you can do it. Like
right now with my 2023 technology.
Now. Yeah, like you can do it. The games are so, on one end, by what we know now, they're so poorly coded, but at the time, I guess also like nobody made that game before. And so it was but there's so many things that are in the game, and they have to make do with the limited amount of memory they had on the Game Boy. And so they had to like make things work in really creative ways. And then just a combination of those creative things kind of just like meshing and how they stored data would create a lot of these glitches. Like, for example, there's right before a trainer notices you, like the exclamation point, and they like walk over to battle you, there's one frame, I think, where you can pause the game. So there's a certain trainer where they notice you pause the game on the frame before they talk to you, and then you use like Abris teleport to teleport away from the trainer, and then you walk a certain amount of distance, and then just on a random street with no grass, no nothing, a battle will just occur, and then there'll be a level 7 Mew, and you can just catch Mew that way in game. But yeah, there's a bunch of, and it's like not just Mew. You can do it to catch a level 7 Gengar. You can catch a level 7, like all kinds of Pokemon, just because there's all these crazy ways. And the game has been out for so long, and so many people have dug into the code,
exploited it. Yeah,
people know how to manipulate the code and the way the game handles itself, where they can do all of this crazy shit and exploit it in all these really, really interesting. Red and Blue is some of the most interesting games ever because of how crazy it is. You can exploit like the way the game's code works. It's awesome.
Yeah, that is interesting.
So aside from Pokemon, I've been playing Pokemon consistently, like off and on my whole life too. So, but like as far as other games, do you guys play like any ARPGs like Diablo 2, Diablo 4?
I've never got into any of the Diablos. By ARPG, I'm assuming you mean action RPG, right?
Yeah, like
so. Like, would you include Kingdom Hearts in that?
Yeah, I guess so. But like, I guess I was kind of going on the Diablo question. If you guys have played Diablo,
so yeah, I've never played Diablo personally. Well, my best friend, he's really big into that game and just games like that. He likes. So there's like Dragon's Dogma, there's Elden Ring, there's Diablo, there's Skyrim, there's all kinds of like games where you're, it's RPG based, but then you also can kind of go dungeon crawl and mass wiping enemies is like one of his favorite things. I'll come over his house and he'll show me like, watch this real quick, and then he'll go into a place and the enemies will mob him, and then he'll just do some like fucking thunder spell and it'll wipe out so many of them. And I guess the thing is like, it's impressive, but when you don't play the game, you don't really know how ridiculous it is to like one shot this crazy ass dungeon where the monsters kill you in one hit and all that stuff. But yeah, I don't have too much Diablo experience, but yeah, I know the new one just came out.
Yeah, I don't really have any either.
I mean, Diablo 3 was a shitty game. I mean, that was the worst thing that they've ever came out with. But Diablo 4 is all right. I haven't really played it yet, but Diablo 2 I've been playing since middle school. I don't think I've ever put down Diablo since.
Oh, is it still supported? As in, like,
yeah. So they re-released. They still have the legacy of the old Diablo, where you can play on the Blizzard server, but they also got D2 Resurrected, which is like redone graphics. They upgraded the graphics.
Yeah,
and it's to where you can play it on Xbox or PlayStation or PC. But that game
really
is
cool.
so addicting because like most games they have like a beginning and an end. Most games and
a finality.
The thing about Diablo is you can straight up do the whole story mode, killing monsters, all that stuff. You can play with people and just collect things. You can play with people and just kill people. There's like, it's almost like there's never ending things to do in that game. And that's kind of why I think it's been around so long.
Yeah.
And the thing I tell people, like in Korea, it is so big. Like they have brick and mortar buildings where they have people just like legit, not like a sweatshop. They got like working there for money, getting swords, armors. And, people don't even realize that for a game that's been out for over 2 decades, there's still people who are spending lots of money in that game. That game is still really alive.
What are people doing in Korea? They're working physically they're working in the game to get things to sell virtually.
So there's a building, like I forget the name of the building. There's a couple websites I've been to. I don't have the Korean translator on my PC right now to be able to go on the websites. But there's actually people who for a job 9 to 5, they're just collecting swords, armors on Diablo.
In the game, okay, in the game.
Yeah, Diablo 2. And you'd be surprised if they still sell. People are still looking for it.
Wow, that's an interesting career.
Yeah, I mean, people wouldn't expect it because it's like Diablo's so old and not a lot of people. Yeah. But the people who do play, it's still got like so much kind of like, it still holds value.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I know back in the day, people would sell accounts on like MapleStory and Final Fantasy 11, Final Fantasy 14. Well, that's still being done right now. But people will sell their accounts for literally thousands of dollars, like actually tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes hundreds, just because depending on what you have on your account, like if you're around since day one and you got some festival thing that you can only get back in 2000 and 12 or whatever, right? Like it's just something that this account has it and every other account after it will just not have it if you don't have an account before this date. So people sell those accounts and make a lot of money. I remember even with things like Pokemon Go, you remember when they took that off the App Store and was the Flappy Bird was another one where that got taken down and like iPhones were being sold with Flappy Bird for a lot of money because they took it off and it was a whole big fiasco with that game. But yeah,
that was so crazy to me.
Yeah, crazy time. But yeah, Diablo, I know you're a big fan of it, but what do you like so much about the game? Like what draws you to it?
Well, like when I was in high school, I got into the whole botting thing where I had multiple computers at home and they'd be like just killing bosses all day and collecting items, and they'd come home and sell things on eBay. Like in 2002, like the best sword in the game would be called like the Grandfather, and the best sword was like the Wind Force, and they were $150 each. And I would come home and find 2 bows and 1 sword in my inventory, and I'm like, yes, I get to buy. And so I had like computers set up throughout my house to where they were botting all day. And my mom even at one point was getting really bugged out. She's like, you're selling drugs, aren't you? You're selling drugs. So I started buying better clothes and buying nicer stuff because I had my income. And it's like, no, I'm showing her. I'm like, the computer is literally doing this. And she told her friends at work. And what's funny is some of the guys at work, who she worked in the office, they actually like, yeah, I play that game too. He can do that. He's like, hey, I'll pay your son to come to my house and set up that program because I want to do that too. So I would actually go to people's houses and I would get paid to set up bots and stuff on their computers. And it's funny because it's not so difficult as far as understanding how to go into scripted code. And if your computer's slow and you don't have as much RAM or something, you have to slow it down when going into portals or add timers when it clicks into things. These are things that some people didn't realize or have the capability to do, but I made a lot of money off the game. And it's got to the point where it's I don't even play it like it's like a game. I play it like it's kind of like therapeutic in a way, because it's today I still will find a sword that I can sell for $500, and it will sell for that price. You can find things like that, and it's just wow, a game that's that old, you can find things like that.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. So you're a hustler all around. You just like hustling.
California, man, it's tough.
Yeah.
That reminds me of another game that I don't know anything about, but it reminds me a lot of old school RuneScape. I have a lot of friends that play the shit out of old school RuneScape. They play it every fucking day. Whenever they're doing anything, like they always have it on, like in the background, and they're like AFK grinding, whatever they might be in that game. And just like another really, really old game that people still notoriously play, and there's still like money in the game as well. If you get certain items or whatever that people like. I don't know too much about either game though. Like I said, Diablo looks cool, but I just never played it. I just never was exposed to it, never owned it. I didn't grow up with it like in my sphere, I guess.
Yeah.
Just curious because like it's hit or miss. Either people are really into Diablo or they don't know about it. So
I mean, it looks like a game I'd probably like if I ever got around to trying it. It's just like having the time to do it. Like I'm still playing Tears of the Kingdom. I'm streaming FF16. I just played it last night. I'll be playing it today when we're done recording. So I'm playing those two games. Pikmin 4 is about to come out. Super Mario RPG Remake is about to come out. There's so many fucking games. It's like sorry. And then on top of that, I'm watching anime for our podcast, like the new Kenshin anime that just came out, the new Bleach, the new Jobless Reincarnation, and just like whatever the fuck, JJK, and like so many shit that is happening that I gotta keep up on and be ready for the podcast. So I don't know if I'll ever get a chance to play Diablo. I kind of want to one day, but who knows?
I'll say this: the rollout for Diablo 4, which I believe is the newest one, the rollout for that game was insane this year. Like I saw, they had all kinds of parties with celebrities and shit. People were dressed in these crazy elaborate costumes.
And all they had to do was show a video of someone fucking a bear.
What happened? Wait, what's that?
There's a video. That's Diablo 4, right? That was part of Diablo 4's rollout. Steve, do you know?
You know what? To be honest, I don't want to be like this anti-Diablo 3, anti-Diablo person. But I
gatekeeping.
Only play Diablo 2. I feel like Diablo 3 was trash and Diablo 4 is trash too. And I didn't want to.
So
tell us how you.
Yeah. So well, I'll just say this though, just so Fraser knows. There was a trailer that came out or whatever, gameplay, whatever, that like in Diablo 4 that you can do anything or whatever. And there's a part where your character has sex with a bear, like literally just full on has sex with a bear.
Bestiality, huh?
That trailer happens, and then like following that trailer, Diablo 4 sells buku. Like it just it's fucking like I don't know why, but the sales for that game went absolute.
You know exactly
buku.
Why, bitch. Don't say I don't know why. You know exactly.
They went nuts. People were like, "You can fuck bears," and then the game went nuts. Everybody bought it.
You'd be surprised at the things that people want to do that they don't even know that they wanted to do.
Yeah.
Until someone shows them that this is what they wanted to do.
Oh yeah.
That's wild. So Steve, one of the things you mentioned way earlier in the podcast in passing was that when you were younger, you used to like, just fuck around, smoke pot, whatever. And I know that based on the conversations we had prior to this podcast episode that you're a big advocate for marijuana and things like that. So do you want to talk about that a little bit now?
Yeah, sure. I work in the marijuana industry in Southern California, where I live. In Adelanto, there's this area called like the Green Belt, and it's basically allowed to.
The Green Belt. That's
amazing. That's fucking amazing. It's a One Piece shit, right?
Cookies, they got Fizzy, big names that the corporate names people have heard of. They all have right here, and they're growing like tons and tons of marijuana there. It's crazy because you drive by it, you can smell it, and it's right by the police station. It's right by the ICE detention center. It's right by the prison. And what's crazy is I work the legit ones where it's by the book, taxed, and then I work
so marijuana is legalized in California now, and it's really cool. Every time I go there, I usually visit like a dispensary or whatever and get like some edibles. Because I'm big on, I like edibles, but I'm not really a big fan of actually smoking marijuana. Probably because I have asthma and just smoking it does not agree with me. Also, I'm just not good at it. So the times I've tried in my life, I just fucking suck. But edibles are easy because you just eat them and then you just wait and then you feel fucking fantastic. So, but yeah, go ahead.
The thing that you hear me?
Yeah, not hear you.
Yeah.
The thing is about the working in the industry and stuff out here is it's cool, but then it's also I see things that kind of like I feel like at dispensaries, like a lot of people who grow the good stuff, they keep it for themselves and they pass the shittier stuff to the dispensaries. Like it's obvious, people would probably do that, but it makes me not go to certain places. Like I don't know if they have them where you guys are at in the East Coast, but there's things called sessions, and they're kind of like pop-up dispensaries where they're only there for like maybe a couple weeks at a time.
I'm sure they do. I don't think me or Fraser would know.
Literally no idea.
You get like a pound of weed for like $200. That's 16 ounces.
Okay. Yeah.
Is that a deal? I'm assuming that's like an insane deal.
Yeah.
In terms of drugs, we both have friends that can fucking talk all day about. We both have friends that know absolutely everything you could know about drugs, but the two of us are not those friends.
Yeah, we have friends
who know
who are,
shit about drugs.
We have friends who are Chief Keef.
Because like when what's crazy is when I went to go apply there, I met a supervisor who plays Yu-Gi-Oh! And I said, yeah, let's do it one time on our lunch break. So we're like playing in the break room. People are like, what the hell are you guys doing? It's like, go away, we're having fun. And then another two guys came like, hey, we play Yu-Gi-Oh! Too. And it's like, man, more people here play Yu-Gi-Oh! Than don't.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Cool. Yeah, that's really dope.
I had a job one time where everybody in there played Pokemon. At the time, it was Pokemon X and Y, I believe. And it was pretty cool. There was a bunch, like even my boss played it, and I did what I usually do when that happens. I go, okay, cool. Like I play too. So I bring my DS in, and then I battle, and then
they get destroyed.
I quickly realized that I blow everybody there out of the water, and then nobody there plays with me anymore.
Because it's usually like, okay, so we all play, but who plays competitively? You know?
Yeah.
Like who knows?
And then like you'll have some people that kind of know what they're doing, and like but at that time I played Pokemon very fucking seriously in terms of competitive. So it was very rare that I would meet somebody in person.
Yeah,
that was like as good as me.
Yeah. That's real. But no, so back to like the marijuana game. So have you always been a big advocate of marijuana, or just like wanted to work in that industry because it wasn't always legal in California?
No. I mean, there was a time when I was younger smoking where it was like almost as bad as having methamphetamine or something, which is, and so I still to this day, when I smoke, I'm very respectful. I don't like to like blow smoke at people or go into an area and, blow up the room with my smell, because I still have
that's really nice.
Respect,
Yeah, that's considerate.
A lot of these kids nowadays, though, dude, growing up smoking the way they are, man, it's just crazy. It's wild.
Their world is different too.
Well, it is, yeah. And with vaping and how it is insane to me how comfortable people are vaping and blowing huge clouds of smoke or vapor. I know people get on me. They're like, it's not smoke, it's vapor.
Whatever.
But people and they'll just blow and indoors, like around other people. It's like, will you fuck off? Like, it's crazy. I've had people blow smoke like in my head, and I'm like, can you fuck off somewhere?
Yeah, I've literally been at events, Yu-Gi-Oh events and stuff, and people will just start vaping in a very public place. And I'm like, I don't know what the rules are. And honestly, I'm not the kind of person who really cares for them anyway. But like, I always think to myself, are you worried about maybe getting kicked out of here or getting banned because you're just doing this so openly? And I get it. Like, it's not really harmful per se, or at least I don't think it is. But like, people just do it very openly. And it, like Kenny said, it can just fog up a whole damn area real quick. People just blowing their smoke.
You had to calm down. He's trying to calm down.
Yeah.
Nah, fuck that.
And I get it. Some people have anxiety and stuff, so they have to hit their vape and everything. I have friends who are like that too. They just... out of nowhere, they'll just start hitting their vape. We'll be in a random situation, they just start hitting their vape.
Dude, I have some cousins that are like the hardest drug addicts you could ever meet, but I have other cousins who never smoked cigarettes, nothing. But then when that vaping shit became popular, I literally don't see them anywhere without, like, everywhere they go, they have a vape on. And they never smoked they never smoked cigarettes or anything else, but somehow they got on that vape wave, and they cannot fucking function without, like, hitting the vape every 3 minutes.
Are you big into do you like vaping, Steve?
I don't like vaping. I like to, when I smoke flower sometimes, and then I'll smoke wax, the concentrated form, because it's cleaner. It doesn't smell as bad.
So how does that work? So I don't know we don't really know anything. So you said flower, which I'm assuming is just like the actual marijuana plant.
Yeah, just the buds, the actual buds that are in the back.
I'm familiar with that because that's old school.
Wax is there's different ways to get the wax. Like the most simplest way is you can have a hydraulic press and just press the flower, and it'll come out like oil, and you just scrape the oil and put it on wax paper and smoke.
We have a friend, I won't say their name. We have a friend that knows how to do that, and they did that, and then they used it to make cookies.
Yes.
And then they in turn almost killed our other friend. Not actually almost killed him, but man,
they was an idiot and didn't know it.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
Why did he almost die? Was he like too stoned, or
not literally almost died, but he was sick. He like ate too many edibles, and he was sick for like legitimately like 76 hours.
Yes. So we told him, because he's like most of us in our friend group, we don't really smoke like that. There's like 2 of us who do. And so we told him, hey, you're not really, a person who is used to ingesting THC, and you should probably go easy on it. But he was like, "Oh no, I'll be fine. Like, I don't feel anything." We all did edibles around Friendsgiving. I told this story in the podcast too. We all did edibles around Friendsgiving, and or at least a couple of us did, not all of us, but a couple of us did edibles around Friendsgiving.
I didn't do shit.
Correct.
Story, Fraser. Was that when you drank the drink? Was it a drink that you drank really fast, or was that my mistake?
No, that's something else, I think, because this was the recent November. So this is 2022 November. We were all at our friend Anthony's house, and our one friend decided that he was just not going to heed our warnings about not overdoing it on edibles, because you know how edibles are. They sneak up on you.
Oh yeah.
There's something that, and I just in 2018 was the first time I ever had marijuana in any form. Like 2018 was the first time I ever in my life had marijuana. And I remember my first experience, I was like, okay, so these things are really strong, even in small doses if you're like a noob to it. And we tried to warn him that, yo, you're not used to it. You probably should really take it easy. Just see what happens after like an hour and a half. But he decided he was going to take matters to his own hands, and he started downing fucking cookies that our one friend, who was a bona fide, proud pothead, he made these cookies. Now, these cookies are not measured. He doesn't measure the dosage that he puts in them. They're just kind of like an eye test. He just eye test the batter. So I already knew. I said, well, I'm not eating those because I really don't. I don't do edibles enough to like have a tolerance, and I also don't smoke weed at all. So for me, I know that if I had even the smallest amount of a cookie, I'm going to be fucked up, and I don't want to be fucked up like that. That's just, for me, that's not really my thing. So I told our other friend, who decided to just not heed the warning, like, yo, you should really not do that because his cookies are going to be strong as shit. And he decided to basically eat an entire cookie. And like Kenny said, he spent 76 hours straight basically throwing up and shitting himself. Sorry, trigger warning. But like for the entire time, he was just in and out of the bathroom, unable to really eat, unable to really do, and he didn't function with us the rest of the trip. Like literally, you couldn't even really tell he was there outside of the times he would come out to go into the bathroom and then go back into the one room that he was secluded to.
Yeah, I always warn people when it comes to like wax and stuff, because like I said, it's so readily available now. You can find it. Be careful, because people think weed can be so simple and so easygoing, but if you can take a big hit or take a big dose, it can really knock you on your ass.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, no, I learned my lesson in 2018, the first time I ever tried it. I didn't have too much, but I had enough to know that any more would do something scary to me. Like I'm in my head a lot. I'm just a person.
Sure. When you go to events, I know you probably don't go to time very often. You probably have time to hang out and talk to people and trade or whatever you're doing in between rounds.
Yeah.
But do you notice a lot of like potheads and like in general, like in the Yu-Gi-Oh scene? Because in California, when every time there's a break, they're like pulling me aside. Let's go. Like everyone's rushing.
So
I feel bad coming back and smelling like weed. It's like, oh shit, dude.
I don't have a strong sense of smell because I'm naturally a nasally person. So I will say that in general, I don't really notice if somebody comes back around and they smell like weed typically. So that's fine with me. Like the whole weed smell thing is fine with me. Also, I grew up in a household where the adults were smoking. So that's not, weed to me is a very common and normal thing in my life, even when it wasn't like legalized or whatever. I'm just used to it. But what I will say is that I have a lot of friends in my life who smoke weed and have always smoked weed, even when I was younger. And especially when it comes to Yu-Gi-Oh and just associating with people who play Yu-Gi-Oh, like you said, there are a lot of people who just, they're potheads. They're proud about it. There are people at my locals who, in between every single round, they go to the car. They're like, let's go to the car. And I know what that means. Everyone knows what that means, but I'm used to being around a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh potheads, and it's just always been a thing. And I let them do their thing. Like, it's not really a big deal. Nobody really cares except them. Like, they kind of just go out and then they come back spraying themselves.
And shit on your sleeves with their dirty ass hands.
No, I never really think about it, honestly. And I've been playing against, I guess, potheads for my whole life of playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, my local has quite a couple of them who go to the car, and they all come back with their eyes real low. Like, that is a thing that has happened for sure. I don't really go to locals as much anymore. And that group of people that I'm talking about, they don't really play Edison. So when I go, it's like the Edison night. And when they go, it's like the modern nights. So I don't really see them as much anymore at all, but I'm sure that they probably still do the same thing. But we don't really see each other like we used to. But when I was younger, when I was highly competitive, a lot of players that I know, and even some ones, I'm not going to name them, but there are some very famous Yu-Gi-Oh players who people would not expect, and they smoke weed down. Okay, like they blow the fucking house down. Some of your favorite duelists who have topped and won and done all the things, they smoke down, okay? Blow the fucking house down. So I was surprised when I got sponsored by ARG and maybe I'm even saying too much now, but when I got sponsored by ARG, there were players that I ended up meeting and getting close to that I was just surprised to find out, like, oh shit, you're a full-on pothead. I would have never guessed. So yeah, I do have experience with that being a thing for sure.
The dumbest thing I've ever done at a Yu-Gi-Oh event. I went to a San Diego regional one time. And I decided it might be fun to eat psychedelic mushrooms at the beginning.
Man.
Oh boy.
On my second match, I was just like looking at my opponent and giggling and telling him like, dude, you win. And he's like, what do you mean I win? I shook his hand. He's like, you win. You're the winner today. Like random. Why did I do this to myself? I'm looking at I was just looking at my hand. I'm looking at the field. I'm just like, I can't do this right now. I look like my cards are multiplying right here like Karibos.
Yo, telling somebody you're the winner today is hilarious. Like it's you, King. Today's your day.
How awesome would it be if like that guy wins the tournament?
Yes.
I didn't say anything about being on drugs or nothing. And the fact that I'm like seeing prismatic shapes and shit all around him. It's like, dude, you win, congrats.
Yeah, you didn't go crazy or anything like that. You're just
that was
like
a waste of time for me to do that. But yeah, that was a stupid side thing I've done at Yu-Gi-Oh with partying.
Hey man, we've all done dumb shit at events or like around events and stuff like that. I definitely have some stories that I keep in the tuck because you never know what the statute of limitations are on some of this shit with Konami. So
that's true.
I've definitely been in situations that are like, yeah, this is probably not the best thing. At least I wasn't necessarily involved in some of the situations, but I was in close proximity to it, and it's like, damn.
Yeah, it's like you, because they're naturally people are going to pay attention to you, and if you're close to anything, it's going to be bad.
Right. So I've definitely seen things in my life of playing the game and just being around the game that are like, yeah, this is probably a bit much. Sometimes things are even a bit much for me. Like I'm a pretty like, I don't know the word for it, but I'm kind of like a straight-laced guy for the most part. Like again, my first time ever trying marijuana in any form was 2018. And even now, like when I do it, it's literally on occasion. I think the last time I had an edible was when I went to California in April. But I typically do like that's typically when I'll do stuff like that. Like when I'm in Cali, I just have a good time.
And you're not like in some like you're not at Disneyland or something, eating edibles and shit because that could be bad.
Like I don't come home and just pop one or whatever. And this is not to like knock anybody who does. Like if your thing is weed, again, I grew up in a household where the adults smoke weed and they enjoyed weed, and I'm very used to it. And a lot of my friends and stuff like that growing up do. It just always has been a thing that for me wasn't really a big deal because when I eventually did try it at my big age, it didn't really do anything for me that was like, okay, this is something that I feel like I need to add to my life. It's just more so like it's kind of like alcohol to me. It's like when I want to have,
that's the best way to do it, man. Because like I feel like the heavy smokers that like smoke a lot, we've done it since like when we were younger, and it kind of like that keeps it to where it's more of a habit. But if you can be that kind of person to where you just do it once in a while, like you said, that is the best way, man.
Yes, for me, because I don't have a tolerance because I do it so sparingly. I do it so sparingly that I don't have a tolerance. So every time I take a 5 milligram gummy, I'm gonna feel that shit. Okay, like a 5 milligram gummy is going to actually completely in an hour and a half, I'm going to feel it and I'm gonna be like, okay, this is enough. Now when I've tried to do 2 5 milligram gummies, I just go into a different planet. Like it is just too much.
Or like Kit Kats or the Reese's. Have you seen the ones where they're packaged like that but they actually have weed in it?
Yes, I've been seeing a lot of that lately where a lot of edibles and just weed in general, not even just edibles, but actual marijuana, the plant itself, comes in packaging that looks like candy or looks like something that might be marketed to a kid. And I noticed that, and this has happened during the pandemic, at least in the Philadelphia area, but like weed used to be, when I would see people selling weed or buying weed or whatever, or they would just have it, it would be in little jars or little baggies. And now it's in these like actual marketed designer brand looking things, these packages that are very detailed, very cartoonish, very loud.
And they do that bullshit you kind of to sell you the weaker product because they figure the better packaging, they can push, weaker product and make more money. So it's,
they call it Reggie where I'm from. I don't know if they call it I don't know if they call it Reggie where you're from or you heard the term Reggie, but
mids, Reggie, yeah.
Yeah, definitely heard of that. Look at me knowing things. But
hey, you know what? In California, those candies I was talking about, those are like you can get them 6 or 7 for $20. So next time you're down, man, I gotta hook you up if you want some.
So I'm actually gonna be in California. I actually just booked a flight today. There's an in real life RBET August 19th.
Where's it at?
Moreno Valley.
Oh, that's like an hour away from me. Cool.
So I'm flying into LAX. I didn't know that LAX is kind of far from Moreno Valley. Like it's over an hour away. So I'm gonna.
Man, it's better. John Wayne Airport is always lesser traveled, and like the locals always go there to get in and out to Orange County. It's faster. Yeah,
see, I didn't know. I already booked my flight and everything, but I do have a ride to the event from the LAX, which is good. Somebody's picking me up, and Yeah, that should be really fun. But then on the way back, I have to figure out what the hell, because me and a true hero / Cairo, we're both going to this in real life California RBET event, and we both just recently booked it. So,
I'd like to meet him.
what'd you say?
I would like to meet Cairo. That'd be cool.
Oh yeah, if you come out to the event, it's gonna be a good time. But I'll be back in Cali. Hopefully, I'll be able to stop at like a dispensary. What'd you say?
Would you say?
Philly legal for marijuana?
We have
I don't think so, right?
well, we have dispensaries now.
Because if it is, you technically should be able to, like from California to Philly, the flight, if it's legal from one place to another, you should be able to take it on your flight.
So I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you I know all the laws about marijuana in Philly. I'm looking it up right now. But I know that we for sure have dispensaries because I actually live. My apartment is very close to a dispensary, and that dispensary has existed the entire pandemic. So it says in Philadelphia, it is legal to use, possess, or purchase medical marijuana per a prescription. The marijuana product must be a form of legal medical marijuana dispensary. Consuming marijuana not prescribed or from a source other than an approved dispensary could land you with a CVN. I don't know what the fuck that means.
Yeah.
So it's not completely legalized, but apparently medical marijuana is. And most people I know have a card. They have like a little marijuana card thing where they can go and buy legally weed and stuff. Like some of my coworkers even have that shit.
Most dispensaries are really unwelcoming. Like when you go in there, do you feel kind of unwelcome? Like they want to push you along, and like if you don't know what you want, you should leave.
Yeah,
that's how I feel a lot in California.
Yeah, it says Pennsylvania remains one of the only states in the region not to have established or be in the process of debating weed legalization. Neighboring states, including New York and New Jersey, have fully established adult use recreational markets. So basically, in the neighboring states of Pennsylvania,
next year.
Yeah, weed is just a completely normal thing and legalized there.
Pennsylvania as a whole, it's crazy because Pennsylvania, for the most part, is known as Philadelphia. Like Philadelphia is the biggest thing in Pennsylvania. And Philadelphia, I would argue, in general, is a more blue-leaning area. Yes, but the rest of PA is red. So it's just funny because PA as a whole is like very fucking conservative when it comes to like
people
just certain ideals and like with weed. Like it's insane to me that it's even a political topic. Like I just don't understand why anybody fucking cares. Like
I agree.
Weed should just be legal. Like all the bullshit, like the medical shit, like let's just fucking cut the, like it's not that serious. Like let's just fucking make weed legal.
I've never seen someone really overdose or die because they smoked weed. Like it's not.
Yeah. It's the same, and
laced.
You always get people like, oh, but then, people will smoke weed and drive. It's like, yeah, it's illegal to do that too. Like, that'll still be illegal. It's illegal to drink Hennessy and drive. It's illegal to drink vodka and drive. Like that can still, like, it's legal to drink vodka, but it's not legal to drive.
Right.
It's the same thing with weed. It's just so silly to me. And this is coming from somebody who does not drink, does not smoke. I don't do any of that shit. But I think it's insane that we still have some of these things illegal. I don't know, for some of the most backwards, like outdated reasons.
That's good politicians and money in their pockets though, because I know like in California, working in the industry I work in, like 10 years ago, if I had a bag of weed in my pocket, I've been arrested and sent to jail. Like nowadays, I'm going down the stairs with 60 pounds I'm holding in a big bag, and these 4 sheriffs are coming up the stairs and they're like nodding at me, smiling as they're walking by. It's like, man, the world has changed. It's
the world has changed.
Money is in their pocket though, because I see them also leaving 10 minutes later out of the office with like a goodie bag, all smiling. It's like, why are these cops all happy leaving the weed place with a goodie bag? Like what's, like I just feel like it's not legit 100%. There's definitely corruption in it.
100%. That's everything in the world that makes money. Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah, it's interesting though. The world has changed because I remember growing up seeing people literally be beaten and fucked up by police officers for marijuana. And now, like you said, you just saw 2 officers smiling at you with 6 pounds or whatever, however much you had, going, leaving out of a building, and they're leaving with goodie bags and happy about it too. It's just completely different time. And that is a conversation that I've seen a lot of people having when we started to become legalized, is like, yo, what about all the people who are fucking in prison for marijuana? Like, it's just kind of crazy. Now the government's eating off of it.
This one grow op that I worked at recently, it was right across, like I'm not even bullshitting right now. Like I can show you personally video later on for shits and giggles, but right across the street from the police jail, where you got the high fence with the barbed wire and all the cops there taking people in from like when they first get arrested and stuff right there, and there's a jail behind it. Right across the street from that is the grow where I was working at, and I'm sitting there wheelbarrowing out like 100, 200, 300 pounds of like these like cubes that I'm growing from like clones and stuff, cutting, tossing them into a dumpster. And I'm right across the street. There's these cops are just staring at me like, and I'm staring back at them. It's like, dude, what's your issue? You know, like, why can't we just be friends? You know, they're looking at me like they want to come over and beat my ass.
Yeah.
We're doing my job.
That's your primary job, right? Like,
No, I do a lot of like in California, like it's expensive there too. I've heard you guys talk about price of living, but it's hard to stay afloat around here. So I have to do like multiple things to even, have enough income to play and have fun. So
no, that's real. So you do marijuana, like the marijuana industry, but then also I know you do like collectibles and stuff like that and buying and selling that type of stuff. Is there anything else that you
like I'm a mechanic on the side. I like to work on cars and stuff,
I can see that.
save a lot of money.
I can totally see that.
Yeah, I got a Smurf blue Mustang. That's pretty fun. I like to be reckless in it, so it's pretty fun.
Yeah. Yeah, Cali is wild. What would you say though is your favorite thing about living in California? Because have you traveled a lot outside of it?
Nah, yeah, I went to Chicago. My brother graduated from the Navy, and but to be honest, I really want to travel. I just feel like in California, everything's such in close proximity. We got Big Bear an hour away. I got the beach an hour and a half away. I got the desert right here. Vegas is an hour away. LA is an hour away.
So you say that, but then people complain about the traffic in California a lot. Like, you guys have the crazy traffic.
People are shitty drivers. Like, I don't want to like shit on people like that, but there's a lot of like trash drivers out there. Just like there's a lot of bad Yu-Gi-Oh players. There's a lot of trash drivers, man. And like people could cause traffic just from being, a patch of shitty drivers. And luckily I'm in a car where I can just scoot around most people. So
I agree with that take though. Obviously, when you think about the world in general, most people who do anything are just not very good at it. So then when you have a population that is huge, like California is one of the biggest states, when you have a really dense population, most of the people, again, are not going to be that good at it. So they're just going to cause traffic because they're just shitty drivers.
Like, I don't know if you guys see it where you live, because I'm sure it's highways are different over there, but out here, you'll come up to, there's just straight highways for miles and miles, and you just come up to this patch of people who are just gridlocking.
Oh, yeah.
Lane. It's like, get the fuck out of the way. Like,
it happens all the time.
Yeah.
Can't stand that.
It's very real. But I love Cali. It's one of my favorite places. In fact, it's one of the only other places in the entire country that I would consider moving to. Like, when I think about moving from Philadelphia, it's always Atlanta or like LA. Those are like the two places that I consider, and those are my choices. That's where I've narrowed it down to. It's one or the other if I ever decide to move from Philly. California, because I just love so many things about it. I love the fashion out there. I love the fact that your weather is kind of walked, like around 70 degrees, plus or minus a couple, but it's every day. Could be a hoodie day if you want it to be. Every day could be a t-shirt day if you want it to be. And I really enjoy that aspect of it, where I can basically dress how I want to dress every single day in California. And you guys don't experience the 4 seasons as drastically as we do in Philadelphia, where like it snows here, it gets extremely hot here, it gets, in between. So you guys don't experience that as much. So I do like that. There's obviously things about Cali that do scare me though, like, earthquakes and droughts, shit like that, the wildfires, things that we do not experience here at all.
People complain about the homeless in LA, like in general, but I feel like as someone who's grown up and lived here my whole life, like I feel like the homeless is being pushed east and away from like the beach, the coast area, because like they're still there, but it's not as bad as it used to be. I feel like California is trying to be like the Hunger Games, of the rich people, they live like all and like that's California in the future. 100 years from now,
I'll tell you what, I don't know how bad it is in California. I do know it's notorious, the homelessness in California, but I mean, at least growing up in Philly, I'm no fucking stranger to seeing homeless people literally everywhere.
Yeah. It's completely a thing here too. I think every major city though, there's going to be a crazy amount of homeless people just in general. Like I think every major city in the US, Chicago,
I do think
Detroit.
I could be wrong. But from the times I've been to New York a lot, I do feel like I see less homelessness in New York than I do in Philly, like in the but I could have just not noticed it. But from all the times I've been in New York, I don't notice homelessness there as much as I do like in Center City, Philadelphia.
So I've started using the subway in New York recently a lot, and I have noticed a lot of homeless people when I'm using the subway with friends. That's where I don't see it as like what you say does have some merit to it, Kenny. I don't see it as much just like out in the streets like we do in Philly. But when you go underground, there's definitely a homeless presence underground. It almost freaked me out a little bit because I was like, damn, we're walking past a good amount of homeless people, and I just started thinking like, what if they all just decided to band together. Now, obviously, thank God that does not happen. But yeah, that is something that I noticed outside. I don't see as many, and it could just be the areas that we frequent in New York don't
Yeah.
typically have a lot of homeless people.
I don't
Whatever.
Philly's areas, the streets of Philly, there's some areas that are pretty thick and dangerous. I know that.
Oh, we
Oh yeah,
have
I
the
mean,
worst area in the entire country in Philadelphia. It's called Kensington. There are fucking documentaries on it. There's like
Yeah.
Netflix specials on it. Kensington has so much. If you don't know what Kensington is, just type in KENSINGTON. Kensington is literally the worst place in the entire United States. It is the drug epidemic of the entire country. It is fucking awful there. All like Fetty or whatever you want. Fentanyl is like heavy in that area. Percocet, just
it's
all
like The Walking Dead there. Like everybody is a zombie. It's insane. It's crazy too because I didn't realize how. So I just grew up around all of it, and I know about it. And I have family that have basically been part of the Kenzo trash, as a lot of people call it. I have like family that has lived there and been part of that for a portion of their lives, and then I have a lot of different stuff. So I didn't realize how big and popular it was like on the internet in terms of documentaries. And so I'm streaming on Critical Hit Plus. There was a point in time when every other day somebody would be in chat and they would ask me about Kensington Ave, and they'd find out I'm from Philly, and they'd ask me like, oh, like how's Kensington? And I'm like, how do you people even know about Kensington Ave? Like,
yeah, it is crazy.
Like, everybody, when they find out that I'm like was born in Philly, they go, oh, really? Like, do you ever go to Kensington Ave? Like, no, not really.
Yeah, like I don't really see Kensington. It's not really a thing for us. But yeah, it is a scary part of our city. I like Kenny and I both have said, we don't really go past it often, but when I do drive past it, the doors are locked, the windows are all the way up, and you drive quick, and you might ignore a couple of stoplights and stuff.
Well, you're not wrong to worry when you walk by a group like you said and think that they could do something, because man, that's like, you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. A lot of these people, like Kenny said, the fentanyl, man, that's the main thing that's making all these homeless people right now. They're like, they don't care that they're homeless right now. Like a lot of them want to be where they're at because they're all like poisoned from the fentanyl. And I would say like it's going to take another like 10, 20 years for the population in the United States to either have people be killed off because they don't understand the abuse of it, and then it'll slow down. But right now we're going through this influx of people just doing it and dying from it.
And it's hitting everyone from top to bottom. It's not just the poor people or homeless people. Fentanyl is killing celebrities. It's killing fucking rich people. It is definitely a real epidemic happening with that drug. I don't know where it came from. I don't know what year it really started to pop out, but it is.
There's a lot of Chinese people in Mexico making it, and a lot of Mexican laboratories making it. It's all coming from Mexico.
Really?
Yeah. That's why, like, a lot of times on the freeways, like in California, a lot of the freeways have cameras and stuff reaching out from LA and Mexico up to like Northern California and out of California. And there's not as much cops anymore in California because nowadays they're doing a lot of camera control and camera surveillance. And nowadays, if you're bunny hopping from freeway to freeway, like you could be just traveling for Yu-Gi-Oh! And you could be from California and traveling to Philly and just bouncing around like you are, you get pulled over by highway patrol because they think you're transporting. And it's a thing now.
Because they're seeing your
license plate scanners and stuff like that.
You know? Right, they're seeing your vehicle making too many trips. They're like, okay, what's going on with this guy?
Fast, you're transporting too far, and you're not a truck. But I mean, it's a good thing that they're doing that. But I mean, that's what they're doing to try to catch a lot of it. But they're not catching all of it because there's just so much of it coming through. It's terrible.
Yeah, and people always know how to beat the system. I'm sure that every single time they're like, use a different car every time. Every single time, use a completely different, and that's just me with my dumbass brain thinking off the top of the mind. Like if you have a system that's tracking, you said what?
There's people who are dumb though and don't think like that,
Yeah, that was just me off the top of my head. Like one way to beat that instantly is if you're making 50K on a run from Cali to wherever, what's it to you to really rent a vehicle that's completely different from the last one, right? Like it.
Yeah. They're going to Canada, they're going like all the way, dude. They're like it's bad. I just hope that it gets better before it gets worse, because in LA there's a issue where there's people who are just dropping it around on places on the street to poison people and get them sick,
Yeah.
That's fine.
So I have a question, because you know a lot about what's going on in the marijuana industry, I would assume, right?
Yeah.
Is fentanyl, are people lacing marijuana with fentanyl? Is that a thing?
Yeah, people who are doing that kind of stuff, like they've always done like sprays and stuff and chemicals that they spray on the weed to try to make it more potent or, get them more high. But yeah, unfortunately they're doing it. They're making like pills. There's guys even making like fake, like just filler pills where they take a speck of fentanyl and putting it in it, and they're selling those off people. So like there's people selling like their own homemade cocktail drug, which is fentanyl, and they don't even say it is. Pretty bad.
Damn.
Yeah, that's actually crazy. I didn't know about fentanyl really until obviously it started popping on my timeline on Instagram and Facebook all the time, seeing celebrities die from it. There's a guy from The Wire who recently died. I want to say in the last year or so from fentanyl overdose. They found out, and I watched that show Euphoria on HBO. It's one of my favorite shows. Euphoria is fucking nuts. Literally top 10 shows for me ever. But it's basically about high school students, and the main character is a drug addict. It's Zendaya, and she plays a drug addict teenager in high school, and she ends up doing fentanyl in like the middle of season 1 at one point against her will. And it's the tiniest fucking drop that she does. Like it's the guy literally takes it out, takes a blade and like puts the fentanyl on the tip of the blade, and it looks like an actual drop of liquid, and then she like licks it off, and she goes into what looks like almost a coma. And from what I understand, people say that, and I don't know fuck about shit. So if I'm saying the wrong thing, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry. But I've seen or like read stuff about how fentanyl can be absorbed through the skin. And there have been times when officers will go to apprehend someone or go pick up a package, and they'll pass out and have to be given Narcan on the spot because they're literally going in a cardiac arrest or like overdose.
The person's sweat is getting them intoxicated, poisoned.
That's insane to me that it's that potent and that powerful. I've seen videos, I don't know if they're real or not, but I've seen videos of a police officer, opening, like drug busting someone, a vehicle, opening up one of the packages, and then soon passing out from handling it with their bare hands. And I'm like, I don't know if this is a skit. I don't know if this is real or not. It looks very real. It's a real police car. They're in real uniforms, looks like badges. The sirens are going off, the lights are on, and they're on the side of the road, and police officer just starts fucking seizuring. And that scares me, that know that there's anything out there that you can touch with your fingers and it can be absorbed through your skin and actually do that.
When you go to a public bathroom and opening the door, what if like there was a drug addict who just like snorted some like fentanyl real quick and walked out, and it's on his finger, and he touches the door, and then after you wash your hands, you touch it and it's on your hand, and then you will touch your face. I'm just saying, like, there's so many ways you can get poisoned from it and not know what it was.
Yeah, that's actually terrifying. I don't even see it. I'm mad that you even put that into my head now. God damn it. Like, I don't even want to think. I travel so much and I touch so many things. Unfortunately, like even when I was at nationals, I remember saying to myself when I left the bathroom, because there was no paper towels in the one that I was in, and I was like, well, I hate opening doors with my skin. Like I prefer obviously like a normal people. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Towel.
Yeah. So I just use my shirt.
This just happened to me when we went out to eat the other day. We just we did a podcast on it. We went to Chubby Cattle, and it's really after sitting down, I was like, oh, is there a bathroom? I want to go wash my hands, because I was on public transportation, and public transportation also looks like The Walking Dead in Philadelphia nowadays. So I was like, I want to wash my fucking hands. So I go to the bathroom, I wash my hands, boop, 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 and then I go to the thing to like get paper towels out of it, and it's just completely empty. And I was like, well, this sucks. It's almost like I didn't wash my hands, because now I got to touch this fucking dirty ass doorknob.
Yeah, that's awful.
Hey, Fraser, and you said you went to the regional and there was no toilet or paper towels in the bathroom. Was it a convention center?
It was.
So I don't know. Like I usually, I don't know if other people do this, but me, like at least around here at the LA and Orange County convention centers, I usually just go like the next convention hall down where it's all darked out and go into the bathroom, and the bathroom is like fully loaded. I don't know if like it's like that where you were at.
Oh, interesting.
I just go to the next like area,
Yeah, I mean, I was in between matches and I was really nervous. I'm pretty sure this was like top 8 or something, but I was really nervous. I was like, I don't want to go too far. I don't want to do too much. And the line for the bathroom that I was near was really crazy, and I just had to pee real quick. Like it was one of those things. I just need to pee real quick.
Off topic though, Yu-Gi-Oh players smell, dude. Like I know it's a meme, to rant to talk about it, but I can't stand the way some people smell, dude. Like when they come into events and stuff, it's like that's got to be part of the mind game. That's got to be part of the way to beat you.
Well, it's against the policies that Konami's put out recently, where hygiene is actually a thing that you can be penalized for.
It's foul. It's disgusting. Can't even think sometimes.
It's also like, it's not just Yu-Gi-Oh players. It is any large group of people, basically.
Yeah,
like,
that's true. I was going to say nerds, but it's not just nerds either.
It's not just nerds. I've been in so many different situations where I was in a large group of people, and inevitably, just because there's that many people, somebody there is going to be unhygienic. And like I just remember being in some situations and like knowing certain people, and then we would be like, oh my God, like this guy showed up. He always fucking smells. Like he never takes a shower. Like this guy always smells. And
Yeah,
and it's not
I'm thinking about one right now.
It just happens so often.
Terrible. I had to say that on the podcast because that's one of the biggest things I hate about one of my gripes about Yu-Gi-Oh! Another thing too, I wanted to mention while I was on here. I know it's kind of a little off topic. We can go back.
No, go listen. This is
time in Yu-Gi-Oh! I hate time because there's always someone who's milking the clock and trying to win off time.
Especially
always,
now.
Man. So back in like after Edison, like the Tengu format, I was like really heavy Infernity player, like strictly Infernity only. And I couldn't stand when I would go to an event and I would play out my turn in 30 seconds and I'm doing it the way in my head, the way I know it needs to be done, but I'm done. And they're just sitting there looking at every card. Like, it's like, oh my God, like I know it's just a situation, but it's almost like every person I play against in an event has to use the time as a part of a way to win.
Yeah.
And I feel like Yu-Gi-Oh players really like you said, no time would be a good thing, especially maybe the top tables, like maybe at the lower tables, there should be times.
I think the best time rules that I've ever heard, and I've said this on the podcast before, but I'll say it again because it's been a while. Scott Page, a friend of the podcast, a guest on the podcast, Scott Page had the absolute best idea to me that I've heard so far. I've heard all kinds of different time rules, but I think Scott Page has it right. He's a YCS champion. He won on that team going to finish that with Steve Silverman and it was Dominic Couch, Scott Page, Steve Silverman. Anyway, his time rules were the rounds are 60 minutes long. So they're an hour long. Everybody gets an hour to play, right? When time is called, if you are still playing, if there's no winner in your match, you both lose. Now, what this does, and I mean like straight up, you both get a loss for that round. Like you and your opponent straight up lose the round. If you don't have a conclusion in 60 minutes, you both lose.
An idea.
So what happens is this does a lot of things because you're like, it's a wild thing. When you first hear it's like, oh shit, that's kind of wild. But then you think about it, first of all, an hour, if you can't finish your fucking match in an hour, one of you or both of you are just taking entirely too long. So that's the first thing. But even past that, it decentivizes people to slow play because there's no actual incentive to slow play, right? Like you're just going to lose. There's also no incentive because one of the things I think that is kind of disgusting right now, but it's such a part of competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, is that players side deck time cards. And I fucking hate that. I think that is one of the most disgusting things that people literally side like cards that burn or cards that gain life, or they side deck in extra deck monsters that do it. And that's just an accepted thing that almost every competitive player is doing. They're just blatantly siding a card for nothing other than time. That was a big part of Tier Elements format because apparently they said that the matches take a while. So they would all side deck, not all of them, but most of them would side deck this skull ladybug thing that if you like foolish burial it, I think it either burns your opponent or you gain life. It doesn't matter which way it goes. The point is it changes your life points or changes their life points in time when your opponent can't really do anything about it. And because of the current time rules, there's no retaliation. So if both players lost after 60 minutes, there'd be no reason to side deck a time card because that time you both just lose. So that would cut that out immediately. And then the thing that I offered as a counter argument was like, well, what if your opponent is now slow playing you with the intention of like, okay, I'm not going to win, but I want us to both lose. So they're kind of slow playing out of spite. Well, my thing for that would be 50 minutes into the round, most players are going to be done because the culture of Yu-Gi-Oh would change if this was a rule to where most players, like 95+% of people, are just going to be finished way faster than they used to be because again, people are going to learn how to play faster. Again, no one wants to get a fucking double match loss. So a lot of players who play slow right now are just going to actually learn how to play faster or just suffer the consequences of never topping an event ever again in your life. But if people wanted to like slow play out of spite at the 50-minute mark, or maybe even the 55-minute mark, all the judges who are currently just on the floor, they wouldn't have much else to do because again, most people would be done. They would go out to every table that has people playing, and in those last 10 to 5 minutes, they will watch those few tables who are still playing their matches and be like, okay, let me see if these people are slow playing, if one of them is trying to slow play. And at that point, the judges should be extremely harsh. And if they see anything that looks like slow play in those last 10 minutes, it's like, you need to play faster.
You hit up someone up in Konami to let them to pay attention to that. That's a really good idea. That would make the game so much better. And
thank you. And this is not my original idea. This is Scott's. I just kind of added like my theories on top of it, but it is Scott's original idea. And the other thing I want to say about it is like, sure, it's a very harsh thing to happen to have a double match loss, but I fucking promise you, people will literally not take forever on purpose. They won't side deck cards anymore, like this ladybug thing or whatever that burns you or gains life.
Avian thing or whatever.
And yes, that. And the other thing is that so we go into overtime every round already. Like every round of Yu-Gi-Oh! If you've ever been in any Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament in your life, I don't care if it's a local, a regional, a YCS, nationals, anything. You've been in any Yu-Gi-Oh tournament. You go into time, like the tournament goes into time every round, and you guys spend anywhere from, and I've seen it the worst, you spend anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour in between rounds because of how long it takes to resolve all the matches that are in time. If you do it the Scott Page way, when that buzzer goes off, if you and your opponent are not done, sign the fucking slip. You both get a loss. There's no debate. I don't want to hear any arguing. I don't want to hear about he slow play. I don't want to hear none of that shit. You guys had an hour to figure this out. You also had an hour to call a judge if you felt like your opponent was truly slow playing. A half hour into the match, 40 minutes into the match, 50 minutes into the match. Like, you had plenty of time to figure out what you were going to do about their slow playing if you really feel like that. Don't wait until 60 minutes in to be like, yo, he slow played me, I was gonna win, or this, that, and the third. Like, no, 60 minutes, you both get a match loss. I don't want to hear it unless you want to get banned. Period.
I like on dueling book, though. Like on dueling book, sometimes when you play people and they're AFK or not doing anything, and then you'll say something and they don't respond, you'll call a judge, and then all of a sudden, oh, they're back. All of a sudden they're back, and not only they're back, they're playing now.
Yes. It's really corny that people do that. Yeah, it's really corny that people do that, but I think Scott Page has the best time rules so far. It's way better than what we currently have, which is just end of phase, time is called, and you just have to freeze play right there and basically check life. And then at the end of that phase, whoever's life is higher wins. It's so toxic. I think a lot of people are exploiting it, and even a lot of the better players too. It kind of sucks. Like, a lot of people are padding their results with the exploitation of time, and I think that it's kind of disgusting. It's also one of the reasons why I just don't want to play competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Modern anyway.
Europe, like recently, like 4 months ago or 3 months ago, there was some Europe regionals or something that happened where there was a guy who won, and then the very next event,
yes,
he lost the same situation because of the
literally
time.
That. Yep, that did happen, and he threw a fucking fit. That literally happened. People have won tournaments because of time, and then when the shoe's on the other foot, they are not happy about losing in time. It's like, well, you just did this to somebody. Like, you literally just won in time before, and now all of a sudden it's happening to you. You don't like it. No one fucking wants to lose like that. That is not. It doesn't feel good. It's not okay. And I think
should apologize for playing slow too. If you're playing slow and you're an asshole, you should be apologizing to your opponent.
Yeah. But I think that the best thing I've heard so far out of any player is Scott Page has I can't really find a good reason to not implement Scott's rules. And that's pretty much the question that he's put on everyone.
That's smart.
Yeah, just 60 minutes. Like, bro, if you can't finish a match of Yu-Gi-Oh! In 60 minutes, then you're the problem. Like, you're the fucking problem. 60 minutes is insane.
Move to the right lane.
Yeah. So I don't mind every tournament being timed. Like, I know I do like RBETs, and I know that when they're double elimination, they typically don't time them because they don't really have to in that case, because when a double elimination tournament, you can end up being like 4 matches ahead of your bracket. And so, like, brackets have to catch up because it's not Swiss, so it's not everyone working on the same amount of rounds. You could play 3 opponents in an hour and a half, right? You could play literally 3 people in an hour and a half, and then you get like a 2-hour break because the people behind you who you're waiting for, your next opponent, you know, they have to play these rounds that they haven't gotten to yet. So I like that, but also I just like the idea of having timed rounds. It makes me play faster too. Like, I noticed that when I do inter RBETs, I don't play as fast because, again, there's no incentive to really like play fast. There's no time. But when I play in a Swiss tournament, Deck Devastators or like nationals that just passed, stuff like that, I typically play way faster because now I'm like, okay, even though I want time to think and all of that stuff, I'm just not about to slow play. Like, I'm just not doing that. Like, I'm not going to take my time. It's not really chess. Like, at the end of the day, I'm going to make a play, and I do not want either me or my opponent to have to suffer because of time. Now, that's not to say that I never, ever go into time. Usually in every tournament I play in, it happens at least once. Sometimes I get away with never, a whole tournament without time, but typically once is the most that you'll ever see me go into time at a tournament. And that's kind of, I like to keep to that. And that's because sometimes games actually obviously do get complicated. I'm not a complete, hypocrite here and say like, oh, I never go into time, because that's not realistic. Sometimes games actually just drag. You guys are both drawing absolute fucking trash. And it's like, yeah, I don't have anything to kill you with, and you somehow don't have anything to kill me with either. And we're basically draw passing. And that's just how the game is going. But for the most part, you should not be going into time.
I love how like it takes. I still have to think. There's still moves you make that are surgical, but there's so many opportunities for those moves. That's what I love about the deck.
Yeah,
and I've had a lot of fun playing that deck, dude. Last 2 days, I've been on Dueling Book for the first time since it was Dueling Network, and these Edison games I've been playing with that Frog deck are just a lot of fun.
Oh, I love it. And the deck to me is once you play it enough, it's fast. Like it doesn't take me very long to bring back Treeworm Frog, activate Econ, take your monster, bring back Treeworm Frog again, go to main phase, go to battle phase, attack you with your monster, main phase 2, tribute your monster, summon Caius, banish this. Like it's to me, it's like very straightforward. I've also been playing it all year.
It lets me play very like reserved too. Like when I'm playing your deck, I feel like I'm just like poking at them the whole time. Just like poke.
It's good at that. It's good at getting your opponent to make a response, and that's when they basically lose. You want your opponent to play the game.
I notice they get annoyed with the Frog deck, like the tension, the back and forth, and then they'll try to overextend, and it's like, oh, you're out.
Battle fader. I don't die, and now you put all your cards on the field, and then you just lose. So
yeah,
the deck is it's a very, very good deck. I've been saying that Frogs are an S tier deck for a while now, since I've been doing tier lists starting in February. I did another one recently for July and going forward, where the meta is right now. And Frogs are still very much S tier, and I think it's proven now, especially with the results from Nationals, where the most deck in the deck that topped the most, or took up the most representation in top cut of Nationals was Frogs. It was Hero Frogs. There were 3 of them, and that is a sign of, the tides are changing when people are realizing this deck is very, very scary. It's very good, and it's definitely something that you should fear, despite the fact that, yes, the side deck cards against Frogs are very good, but at least the way I have it built, it's kind of hard to side deck against it and guarantee a victory, because I'm only playing 4 Monarchs now. I play 3 Kai's, 1 Ryza, so Mask or Restrict isn't that good. And then I'm also playing like a lot of special summons and stuff like that. So sometimes like pulling a rug isn't really that good either, because I only have 4 Monarchs, and Swap Frog sometimes gets special summoned by either Substitute or its own effect. So you really can't pull in a rug it when I do that. Pulling a rug or Stratos is not the best thing. It's like, okay, that's fine. The hero's still in the graveyard, where technically that's where I wanted him anyway for Miracle Fusion. So just like a lot of the ways the deck comes at you, it can be hard to side deck against. And I think that is the key with Frogs, is to make it where anything that your opponent side, like even when people side deck Fossil Dyna, well, now my deck plays Stratos, Alias, Ocean, Junk Synchron. All these monsters are monsters that I can literally go normal summon, attack, and it just kills Fossil Dyna. And there's been so many times where my opponent will have Fossil Dyna and a back row pulling the rug, and I'll just go activate E-Call, get Alias, summon Alias, attack. And they're just like...
everyone who sides the deck takes so long to side for it. It's like, man, you're really going to mess up your deck right now.
And it's just hilarious, because I'm like, after the game when they lose, I'm like, what'd you have back there? And they flip a pulling a rug, and I'm like, oh, wow. I never really needed to do anything that would get pulling the rug, or I did, but by the time I did it, it didn't matter. Like I'll finally go summon a Monarch, and they're like pulling a rug, and I'm like, okay, Miracle Fusion. I just want to see what your back row was, and now it's clear. Now it's clear. Now here's this 0 that's at 3,500 because I have a dupe lock up or whatever. So yeah, the deck it's very strong, and the more you learn about the deck and the more you learn about Edison format and stuff like that, it gets stronger. And I'm realizing that like over time, I'm getting better and better with the deck and as a player in the format, because I'm just learning more shit about Frogs, and it's kind of crazy. Like
dude, you guys teaching everybody Frazier? You said that the other day, how like giving away your trade secrets and stuff, dude. Yeah. I appreciate it. I appreciate it, because I don't have time to lab and do a lot of
a lot of us don't, man. We're older.
And it's like when certain people who I accept and I trust your knowledge. So when you say something, I'm not gonna say, oh, Frazier's word is God, but it's like Frazier's word has things behind it. So I listen to it, and it helps me, get to a point faster than labbing a lot and doing all that work.
Like I'm just the way I feel about content, because I've been competitive for so long, and I do feel like I've accomplished a lot that I've wanted to accomplish in Yu-Gi-Oh! So I don't really feel like I'm holding back when I'm talking in terms of like, I don't feel like I need to lie to the community when I'm making videos. Like when I make Yu-Gi-Oh! Content on YouTube, I'm not making it with the intent to like poison the well. I'm not trying to poison people's minds. I'm not trying to lie to you. When I say that I think Blackwings is the best deck, that is my real opinion about Edison format. I do think that Blackwings is the best deck. Why do I play Frogs? I enjoy Frogs way more. Blackwings are fucking boring to me. Yes, I do think it's the best deck because it wins the most unfairly and easily. And to me, the easiest, most unfair deck is always going to be the best deck in every format. But that doesn't mean that that's what everyone should play. That doesn't mean that that's what I'm going to play. I enjoy the feeling and the thought process behind playing the Frog deck. I also like that people don't know what they're doing when they play against me. That like when you play against Blackwings, you know exactly what the fuck is happening. You know you need to bottomless that monster that I summon every time I summon it, because guess what? If you don't, you know where it's going. You know that the shore is going to attack over your guy, and then it's going to do this. But like when I play Frogs, I feel like people genuinely don't know where my turn is going when it starts. You have no idea what's going to. You don't know if a Junk Synchron is going to come down. You don't know if a Miracle Fusion is coming down. You don't know if a Caius is coming down. You don't know if I'm going to Econ take your Stardust. You have no idea if I'm going to do a Substitute play, if I'm going to do some Swap Frog nonsense, a Unifrog play where I start popping your back rows, attacking you directly. Like, you just don't know where it's going to go. And I love that it's not linear. So that for me is like a big deal. But I don't lie about how I feel about the decks. When I make a tier list, like, those are my real thoughts. I think that the decks are properly placed based on my experiences and what I truly think about the game. So yeah, that's always been my stance.
15 years ago when I played Edison format, like current, I remember I was playing the Dragon deck, the Dragon, kind of Dragon Turbo. But back then people called it Hopeless Dragon. I don't know if
I remember that name.
It was Hopeless Dragon. I used to always say, like, why you gotta call it Hopeless Dragon? Because this shit fucking will kill when it comes out, right?
It's because it's hopeless on both ends.
It is.
It's either you have a hopeless chance of winning because you bricked, or your opponent has a hopeless chance of winning because you fucking drew the nuts and you win.
Yeah, that name is very fitting, honestly, because it is truly a hopeless deck on both sides. Either your opponent is getting sacked or you're getting sacked, basically. Yeah. It's like somebody's getting screwed hopelessly. That's the reality of it.
Yu-Gi-Oh, or
what'd you say?
Has Kenny been playing more Yu-Gi-Oh?
Not really.
Nah, not really. I want to go. I do want to go to one of these events. The biggest reason why dude, I'm gonna just say it. The TCG player like ordering cards is fucking annoying. And I've now ordered on more than one occasion. I would say I think it's happened to me 3 times now where I've tried to order cards and they just never show the fuck up. Like it just never happens. And then I gotta argue with the seller on TCG Player for like 7 fucking days and have a back and forth with them. And then just like, and it's just really frustrating. And I just want to have the cards physically. Because if I'm being honest, I'm not the biggest fan of playing on Dueling Book, which is where the entire format is. But
not really anymore though. It's slowly getting off of Dueling Book. Like the fact that Konami's doing shit like the Ultimate Time tournament and stuff, and there's all these in real life RBETs, it is getting a bit off of Dueling Book, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I just like playing physically. Like same thing with like DC deck building game. I really, really enjoy playing that game. But at some point, I think mainly because of the pandemic, our whole friend group mainly played on Tabletop Sim, and it's just not as fun to me. Like I don't like finicking around with. Like I just don't like it as much. I just like it more in person.
I was the same as Kenny. Honestly, I didn't like virtual card games. Period. Yu-Gi-Oh, DC deck building didn't matter. I'm a person who, because I know. When I play in person, I think that physicality is a big part of Yu-Gi-Oh! And a big part of card games. Like
half, I would say.
What'd you say?
I would say the physical presence is like 35-40% of the whole thing.
Yeah, it's some amount of the game for me. So when you play virtually, you take away all of that. And obviously someone who only knew the game physically is going to probably enjoy it that way the most. So for me, physically will always be like in person will always be the preference. But I have softened up to playing card games virtually in the last couple years because of the pandemic, and because I realized that now I don't have to interact with humans as much. Like I don't have to actually physically interact. I don't have to smell people. I don't have to see people. I don't have to talk to a bunch of people that I don't want to talk to. There's a lot of, for me, as a person who's actually a bit of an introvert, surprisingly. Most people might not know that, but I'm an introvert. I'm only extroverted with people I know or my friends, but I'm not really an extrovert in person. So like for me, I learned through the pandemic also that I kind of like the virtual aspect. Like some parts of it I like. Like there's some parts of it that I like, and there's some parts that I don't like. Like you said, the physicality, whatever percent of it makes, I miss that part of it every time I play, you know, on Dueling Book or whatever.
Like, there's this other deck building game that I fucking am in love with. It's called Slay the Spire. It's a video game, but they did a Kickstarter for an actual physical card game version of it. And I backed the Kickstarter. I think it's going to come out in February. But when that comes out, I want to try to get everybody playing it. Like I want to go over. Like I want to play it with I really, really want to play it with Frazier. Just because I think there's like some, when you play it and you learn the game, I would love to see just like, I don't know, the shit Frazier would do on it.
My brain. Like,
it's a really fun game, and Stango, my cousin, plays it a lot. So I would love to like go over Frazier's house, and it's like me, Stango, Frazier, and Gary trying to slay the Spire. It's just a dope ass fucking game. But that game is officially by the people that are making the board game. It's on Tabletop Sim, and I've played it on Tabletop Sim a couple times. And I fucking love it. But every time I play it, I'm like, oh my god, I just want to play it physically because I just don't like finagling around with the controls. And it's kind of the same thing with Dueling Book. Like
that is kind of like that on Dueling Book. Sometimes you have to be careful.
I hate it. I hate Dueling Book because of the lag. Your opponent doesn't respond to you. You don't know what the fuck is going on. Like in person, you can't just go away from your keyboard.
Yeah, you can't just AFK me.
Yeah, like that's not a thing. So I hate Dueling Book when people get annoyed. Like let's say I open up Busted on Dueling Book, my opponent can just literally not do anything for 10 minutes, right? Like they could just literally be like, all right, well, you opened up broken, I'm going to lose this game, but because I don't want to lose, I'm just going to go AFK. And like that's some bullshit that unfortunately people do stuff like that, but in person I never have anything like that. And if I do have any weird shit, I just call a judge and like get you the fuck out of here. Like I don't have to do
There's also like micro shit that annoys me, and it shouldn't, but it does. But like you'll join an Edison game on Dueling Book and it'll be like the modern field and I gotta like choose my zone every time.
I hate it.
And it's like, dude, leave me the fuck alone.
Yeah, I turn that off. Also, simple things like I'm a frog player, right? Bringing back Treatment Frog every standby phase on a mouse
is annoying.
It's annoying.
Yeah.
It's just annoying. It's because like in person I can just easily, my hand is always like, playing with my graveyard and stuff like that, spreading it. My Treatment Frog is always about to come out as soon as I draw my card. It's really quick for me to grab it and put it on the field. But on Dueling Book, you have to like click your graveyard. And then when you click your graveyard, there's a whole overlay that comes up with everything in your graveyard. And you have to click the Treatment Frog and then click Special Summon and Defense or Attack. And then close that after you do that. So it's just like a lot to, a couple interactions to get to that point. And I prefer physically just reaching over and grabbing my Treatment Frog, putting it on the field, and then being like, all right, so now I'm in lane phase, whatever.
Same.
But yeah, there's always going to be pluses and minuses to it. At first, I thought that it was all minuses, but like I said, I learned because I'm such an introvert that there are things about playing virtual card games that I do enjoy now. And I'm kind of on the fence about, how I feel as a whole.
I want to quickly ask, because we're getting toward the end, but I have to ask, Steve, is your dad or mom a comic book fan? And did they know their last name was Roger? So they were like, we're going to name him Steve after Captain America?
My mom is Sicilian and she came over to America when she was 16 years old. So she doesn't really have too much like the comic book and like kind of like American like movie influence and like
yeah.
But my dad, it's crazy. He's Steve Rogers and my grandpa is Steve Rogers. And I told them that and they're like, oh, that's crazy. I never knew. Like they were just like, it's not. I'm like, well, like
it doesn't mean anything to them. Yeah.
Steve Rogers here and no one knows we're Captain America.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's actually crazy. Yeah, your name is literally Steve Rogers.
And then so I see you have a Captain America shirt on.
Right.
Is that just because like it's Captain America, or have you gotten into comic books and stuff like that? Are you in the Captain America and like other guys?
Yeah, I've always kind of been into comics because like when I was a kid, I don't know how my dad came onto like a bunch of comics and I would randomly, not in order or anything, just like open comic books and read them. I had a lot of Spawn and stuff, different things, like just random kind of comics too. And I just got into it. Matter of fact, I want to give a shout out to my buddy Rick Lopez. He's a comic book artist and he used to be a really good Yu-Gi-Oh player. He always topped like every event he went to. And anyway, I would like to give a shout out to his page later on. I got to look and see exactly the name of it. But yeah, Rick Lopez, he's a comic book creator and man, he's big props to you, dude. Good job. He's like Yu-Gi-Oh player who is now making comics and he's doing he just did San Diego Comic-Con. So
awesome.
That's cool. Yeah, that's really awesome. Yeah, so I'm glad that Kenny asked because I actually had that written down. Like, how has it been living as Captain America was my question. But
it's crazy when I go to some places because like I'll like be in a regular thing like environment with my kids and my wife, and they look at my name and they're like, "Hey, like I got you hooked up. You're okay." I'm like, "What's going on? Like, I got you a special seat. You're taken care of." I'm like, "He's a captain. You're okay." I'm like, "Oh my god!" All this like I'm thinking, "What are you talking about?" He's a captain. Sometimes I'll tell him, "Hell Hydra" at the end. Like, oh, but yeah,
it's fun. Fucking funny.
I like it when it gets me discounts. That's the best part.
Yeah, that's really dope. My name is very basic. I don't know. I would be cool to have a name like that. I mean, I'm sure kids nowadays are being born, especially after Marvel phase, whatever it was, when Thanos and all that stuff, like that first whole section of movies has inspired a lot of children to be named after superheroes. I would imagine.
Yeah.
There's definitely a little T'Challa out here somewhere.
Oh, hell yeah, there's a little T'Challa. Hell yeah, there's a little T'Challa.
There probably was a T'Challa before T'Challa, but...
Because T'Challa is actually a unique name, right? Like, unless you somehow have the last name Stark, like naming your kid Tony, it's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, T'Challa, it doesn't matter what the last name is. You name your kid T'Challa, like, you know what the fuck it is.
That's true. That is a very... Like, that is one thing. That is, like, T'Challa is just Black Panther, right? Like, that's yeah. Tony Stark could be literally anybody. There's probably a lot of Tony Starks in the world before even Iron Man. There's just Tony Stark existed. So I can see that. I see what you mean. Peter Parker, same thing. Like,
Real quick, I forgot to give out the shout out to my buddy's page on Instagram, Doom Dazed. DOOMDAZED. He used to be Skate Note on YouTube, a YouTuber for Yu-Gi-Oh. And it just, if anyone's interested, he's a comic book artist now, and he does that. So if you want to support a Yu-Gi-Oh player that's down going into that field,
That's cool. Doom. What was it again? Say it one more time. Sorry.
at Simon and Doom Dazed, DOOMDAZED.
Okay, gotcha. Doom Days. That's pretty cool. I like that. Alliteration there.
Good Yu-Gi-Oh player too. Like that's one thing. Like I like in my group. Like I've always liked surround myself with. Obviously in life you surround yourself with people better than you in certain areas to get yourself better in better places. And I feel like in Yu-Gi-Oh I've always tried to surround myself with good players because I don't want to like be cocky and say I'm good or great, but you could always learn something from someone. And I feel like that's the best thing to do is always surround yourself with good players and try to pay attention and not be so cocky. And that's one thing about Yu-Gi-Oh players. Some people are so cocky and like sometimes I'll win when I play people like nowadays because I'm older now. I'll play people and I just like how Fraser, when you said you like when you either win or lose at an event, this may not be winning or losing. I could just be playing someone and they just look like they're so broken. It's like, dude, calm down. Like, chill out. It's just a game.
Take it easy. For me, it's easier now, again, because I'm older and like I've done a lot that I wanted to do. So now I take my losses and I'm just like, yeah, man, it happens. Like I've done the worst to people and I've had the worst done to me. I've top decked the one out. I've had it happen to me. Like I've seen it all. Like if there's not much that could surprise me. I don't really get shocked when somebody top decks brain control off the top of their deck and kills me. I'm like, yep, I've done it. You did it. It happens, right?
I made sure to log in my head the whole Fossil Dyna bounce trick, so that one's logged in my head now too.
Oh, you heard that? Yeah, someone's paying attention.
I try to pay attention, man. Because like I said, when it comes to like learning how to be better and stuff, you got to learn this, pay attention. Or else
someone's paying attention. That's that one. That's a very recent one that I just said that.
I call you out on it. I think that's a good thing to like pay attention to because it's like
I didn't do it again. Yes, that will come up 100%. One more that will come up again, no matter what. The taking your opponent's monster, using Slop Frog to bounce it to their hand, and then if it's like a Fossil Dyna, you could play Miracle Fusion afterwards. So that play is very broken. And for the rest of my life, I'm just gonna always know that's the thing.
Or what game was it?
It was game 2. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, I did not notice that, and I don't want to create Johns for myself. Like I don't want to make excuses because me and Cairo, we were both talking about how we could have played better at a point in Top Cut. Like we both feel like we weren't playing our best, and both of us did arrive to the event. We did not eat, we did not drink anything, no water and no food the entire time. We had to play rounds 8, 9, then top 8, top 4, and he also had to play the finals. So and while he's playing the finals, I had to play the playoffs for top 4 after that. So like we both had to play me and Kyra played the exact same number of rounds. When I think about it, we actually played the exact same number of rounds. And so that you need like physical stamina on top of mental stamina, and obviously having water and stuff like that contributes to that. So we both agreed that for the next event, in real life RBET, whatever it's going to be, just make sure that you're like at least be hydrated. Because for me, I don't need food when I'm playing, because for me, food makes me a bit sluggish actually, because your body has to allocate resources to break it down. So I tend to get tired after I eat, like most people do. So I don't eat necessarily during a tournament, at least not something heavy. I might eat something like tiny, like I had Sour Patches at Nationals. That's what I had. I had Sour Patches. And that was all I had the entire 7 rounds of the tournament. I had Sour Patches. But liquid, like, you need water, period. Like you just need water. So at the very least, if you get nothing else from what I'm saying, drink water. And this is not me making excuses, because honestly, I just don't give a fuck. Like I did not play as well.
It's you learning from a mistake.
Correct.
Like there's a huge difference between like when people are Johning, it's like, oh, my phone was in my pocket and I lost because my dad called and then he told me that my mom is cheating on him. And it's like, but like if you're just like, I didn't fucking drink water, I lost, and it's like, I lost. Like,
and I
like you own the loss, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna learn from it.
Yes,
I didn't see a play. Correct. I now know the play, and I'll see it next time.
Yes, I acknowledge 100% I misplayed, for sure, no question. And on top of that, I also know that I just wasn't playing my best in general. And I think that a part of the reason why is because of dehydration. So there's that's kind of like the whole thing, not to take any part of it out of context. All right, Steve, do you want to say anything else before we read off our Patreon subscribers, including yourself?
Shout out to my locals baseball and games in Victorville and High Desert, where I live, where I'm in between LA and Vegas. It's like the only card shop in this area, and shout out to them for being around and doing their thing. So thank you, baseball and games.
Okay.
If you guys are traveling on the 15 freeway from Vegas, because this is actually like, let's say you're like from LA or Orange County, you're driving to Vegas or back and forth. if you're on the 15 freeway in like the middle in the no man's land, when you get to like one of those desert towns, Victorville, there is that shop and they have everything there. So if you need anything for Yu-Gi-Oh, like sleeves, mats, cards, whatever, they have everything there. So
okay, that's good to know. So definitely check that out. What'd you say the name of the card store your locals was again? Say it
baseball and games.
Baseball and games. So yeah, definitely check out baseball and games if you're in California. All right. So without further ado, I want to give a shout out to all of the people on our Patreon who are currently active. Thank you guys so much for your support. We really appreciate you. I hope you enjoyed this episode because this one was actually really fun and definitely different from a lot of the other episodes that we've had before. I don't think we've ever talked to someone who's had these experiences. So this was a very unique thing. And that's kind of what I'm liking about our podcast in general is that, you know, while a lot of it does focus around nerd culture, it always kind of comes back to that. But then sometimes we do branch out and talk about other things, life events, all types of stuff. So this was really cool to have you on, Steve. Thank you so much for that.
Hell yeah.
Good pleasure. You guys are awesome. Thank you.
And I want to give a shout out to Connie. Ronathan kept scrubbing in side event finals. Leon, Stardust Dragon Assault Mode gave me PTSD. Xavier, Hylian, Dimitri, Volvi knows a spot in the woods. Dominic Roberts, Giovanni Avalos, Alex Flamer, sorry. Henri Reynolds, Dan Vrabel, and hold on, let me get to the next page. There's a lot of these. First to Home, S. Akuma, Mitchell Naus, Midwest Gaming, William Shapiro, Dimitri Safirides, Vince Marquette, Dallas Bailey, KJ, Roz Weiss, Nick Stango, Hantor, our two-time national champion. Ka-chan is a poorly written character, Sarah Maria, Sunny Top Cup Podcast, Alex Ahern, Philip Campa, Jalen Haskins, Chris Lynn, Wookie159, MSW2389, Edison Club, Kyle Batelho, Brandon Morris, Sugal, Nick, Mr. Soultide, Nafa, Corey Falza, Omar Ramos, Elijah Barfault, and then we have
A True Hero, Tyler Tadeo, Volvi, the Mega Monarch, Big Stinky, Duty Booty, Adam Corey, Enraged Peacock, Leo Bacani, Janitor 215. My Spot in the Woods has no racism.
I don't know what that one is about. That one is just so triggering.
Thomas Rude, Joshua, Carol, Steve Rogers. Hello, Steve Rogers on the Patreon.
Yes.
Special guest today. And then we have Wayne Trader, Eric Chai, Finesse Kid, Tim Amaya, Owen Tedford, and Jeff Strain.
Yeah, shout out to all you guys, especially the last four, Jeff Strain, Owen, Tim, and Finesse Kid. You guys are our newest patrons. Shout out to you. But yeah, thank you guys so much for still supporting us doing this. If you're in our Discord, so first of all, if you're on our Patreon, then you get access to our Discord and you get access to it in perpetuity. So it's not like you have to stay like sub to be in the Discord. I won't kick you out if you're not on the Patreon or whatever. But I will say this, we have a channel in our Patreon that's called Podcast Suggestions. And I want you guys to use it. Like if there's any random ideas that are like, hopefully keep it nerd related in some regard. But yeah, write stuff in there that you would like to hear us talk about. Because we do go in there to get our monthly exclusive episodes and sometimes just actual regular episodes. We go in there to get inspiration for what we're going to talk about. So definitely please use that channel, Podcast Suggestions. And yeah, as I always say, guys, do the things that make you happy, including sending masks of brutality and masks of restrict to serial killers in prison and not getting them back. Yeah, that's all I got for you, Steve.
Thanks, guys. You guys are great. You guys deserve a lot. You guys deserve a lot more subscribers and Patreon, so make sure you guys are getting on this because they deserve it.
Thank you.
We're working on it. Yeah, thank you.
All right, we will catch you in the next one. Peace out.
Peace.
Thank you.